The police are to review whether the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, broke lockdown rules.
Good morning. It is 6 o'clock on Thursday, the 28th of April. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
And leading the news this morning, Durham police have opened the door to a renewed probe into claims that Sir Keir Starmer broke lockdown rules in April last year.
Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries has called for the Labour leader to be subjected to the same standards as the PM.
York councillors from all parties have voted unanimously to remove Prince Andrew's freedom of the city. The vote was accompanied by calls for the Queen to strip the Prince of his Duke of York title.
The Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, has warned that the war in Ukraine could last up to a decade. In a major foreign policy address, she called President Putin a desperate rogue operator and warned China to play by the rules.
The Prime Minister's threatening the Passport Office with privatisation as the backlog grows to 500,000, with travellers warned of a 10-week wait. Our Home Affairs editor, Mark White, will bring you the details shortly.
And we are the People's Channel. As always, we want your views and to get involved in our discussion. So tweet us at GB News, or you can email us gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Do you think people tweeted with views on my haircut?
It's very, very smart. I like a short haircut. I like it. Yeah. Very smart.
Yeah, only nice comments only. And nice votes, because today's Thursday. This is the last day, the very last day that if you would like to cast a vote for us at the Television Radio Industry Club Awards, you just go to the Trick website, and it's there, trick.org.uk, where you will find our breakfast show, Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. You'll find Isabel as the best newsreader in the country, and might be stretching the imagination somewhat, but also I will be there.
We got to 6:02 before he started.
As the best.
It's true, you'll win all the votes, that's fine. If you want.
I didn't say that. I don't expect
No.
that. I'm just saying.
Veteran, that you are.
Stranger things have happened. Okay, back after this.
OK, our top story this morning, and police are considering a full probe into claims that Keir Starmer broke lockdown rules over drinks with Labour officials.
Now, this is from Durham Police, and they've said that it will consider a request from the Conservative MP Richard Holden to review the decision that cleared the Labour leader. So
the event in question took place in April last year. It was April the 30th, with the Labour MP for the City of Durham, Mary Foy. Party officials held a quiz and social event on that same evening that Sir Keir Starmer was there. However, Labour is strongly denying that the Labour leader took part in that quiz.
So the Culture Secretary, Nadine Dorries, called for Sir Keir to be subjected to the same standards as the Prime Minister.
Well, for more on this, we are joined now by Sam Lister, who's the Deputy Political Editor of the Daily Express. Very good morning to you, Sam.
Now, Sam, a lot of people, particularly watching and listening to this station, have been waiting for this for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think the Conservatives are going to let this one go. There's going to be a lot of pressure on the Durham Police to investigate this. The letter from Durham Police is quite vague as to what they're actually going to do next. And Labour are absolutely adamant that Sir Keir Starmer did not break any rules.
So what's changing? Has something come to light?
This new video's come out, hasn't it? 43 seconds long.
Absolutely.
What's seen in this clip?
Well, it's Keir Starmer drinking a beer. We obviously saw the photos already last year, but obviously it gives a little bit more context of what happened there. I mean, they are saying that absolutely they did not break the rules. Keir Starmer did not break the rules. He was campaigning in the by-election at Hartlepool.
The Conservatives said that as well.
Exactly,
on their side. So we've heard all this. They doth protest too much.
Indeed. But it's going to be politically very difficult for Keir Starmer to explain why he didn't break the rules when he's saying the Prime Minister did. And Richard Holden, the Conservative MP who's written to Durham Constabulary, he says Keir Starmer is not able to provide that information about why his beer drinking with colleagues is different to the Conservatives wine drinking with colleagues. So, yeah, there's plenty to go at.
Yeah, and look, he's come in for some criticism, the Labour leader as well, hasn't he, for going so hard on this issue, for really trying to nail the Prime Minister on Partygate, when there is a cost of living crisis that so many other people think should be the focus and the priority of the party, of the working people as they consider themselves. And I suppose it's going to be harder for him to defend that now.
Indeed, and I asked his people yesterday, one of his colleagues apparently told him not to discuss Partygate anymore because people in the Red Wall apparently are sick to the back teeth of it. They insisted that wasn't the case and that he will still bring this up because it's about a matter of integrity. But of course, then that goes back to this picture of him drinking beer and why that is different to the Conservatives.
OK.
Speaking of matters of integrity, I mean, there's so many stories coming out of Westminster at the moment. Of course, we've had the whole Angela Rayner misogyny row this week. And then yesterday, it came to light that 2 Conservative MPs, independently, so it's been corroborated, have identified another Conservative MP as having watched pornography in the Commons. What's going on?
I mean, there is cold fury among female MPs in the Conservative Party, female MPs across the House, but particularly in the Conservative Party. This is one of their own. There is no justification for this behaviour. No, it is unacceptable. Not only is it offensive to voters, it's offensive to those women who were sat round this end.
Is it not offensive to the men sat around them as well? I mean, I don't understand why it's just women that could be offended by this.
I would find it particularly odd if a male colleague of mine during working hours was doing that, right? So I'd think no. But I was reading an article online that was saying, yes, but you see, the work-life balance of an MP is distorted. It's all clouded as to what is work and what is not work and how long they spend in the Commons.
Sorry, you're in the parliamentary chamber.
But then they're saying, oh, but this could have been at night time. This could... No, I'm not sure it was in the parliamentary chamber.
Was it not in the Commons?
It was in the... But it wasn't in the parliamentary...
OK, oh, I see.
I don't know. I've no idea.
Well, I think there was one occasion that was in the Commons, we understand. I mean,
on the front bench, I'd heard a rumour.
We've got very few details because it's a private meeting, but there was one suggestion that one occasion was in the Commons chamber itself, and then there was a separate occasion elsewhere on the parliamentary estate. There were two occasions. I mean, it's pretty grim, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah. It is pretty grim. I think that is a good way to describe that as well there. But obviously yesterday, the court ruling yesterday, discharging people into care homes during the pandemic, it was ruled to be unlawful. Again, it's another retrospective thing, whether it's Keir Starmer, whether it is this. Has the public lost its appetite for looking back and judging things that happened in those extraordinary times? Or do you look at this and you say, are you serious? Are you absolutely serious? The people that are asymptomatic, we didn't know if they were spreading or not, but we just dumped everybody into a care home from a hospital.
I mean, 20,000 people in care homes died during that first wave. It's shocking, isn't it? But obviously, we will find out probably next week at the local elections. That will be a good indicator of where the public are on all these matters, on care homes, on Partygate, etc. That's the public's chance to give its verdict, isn't it, on these matters? It's the first proper chance we get to see what they think about these things. But obviously, we've seen today Matt Hancock, the Health Secretary, who was so closely associated. It was his face on this policy, wasn't it? He said he threw a protective ring around care homes, and that clearly wasn't the case. But the blame game has started, if you will, today. He's written in the Daily Telegraph saying, actually, it was the Public Health England who were responsible for not giving me the right information at the time to make the right decisions at the time. So you see now that this blame game has started and he's trying to shift it onto them.
And Sam Lister, I mean, we see so much of Matt Hancock, don't we? Do you think he's ever going to make this clearly much desired comeback that he wants in light of this and all the, things we hear time after time about him?
He's trying his level best to get back, but I think it's a very difficult road for him to return to frontbench politics. I think, obviously, the image we saw of him will stay in the public's mind, and then on top of that, you have this court judgment, and I think it's very hard for him to see a way back.
A lot of people would say he's a bit shameless with all of this. Why do you think it means so much for him to re-emerge politically?
all politicians are shameless, aren't they? You have to be, to survive in Westminster, you have to have a very thick skin and you have to have a certain amount of ego to want to do that job and put yourself forward. You know, most people think there is a better, easier way to earn a living than to put themselves forward in that way. So there is an element of that. And obviously all politicians want to leave on a high. And they're always, if they don't, if they're forced out in circumstances like he was, they're always trying to kind of make that up.
But he obviously sees himself as a potential leader. He obviously sees himself, you know, there is a weakness there and he thinks he is the man to fill the void.
I don't think the Conservative Party will think that way. You know, they're looking for some fresh faces to take the party forward.
Speaking of people who see themselves as perhaps taking the party forward one day, Rishi Sunak yesterday cleared for breaching the ministerial code in light of his wife's non-dom status and also for his own green card position. Controversial or not?
Well, I think often you find that these things, they may be within the rules, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the public find it acceptable. And you saw that with the Expenser scandal, didn't you? A lot of the claims made by MPs were within the rules, but actually the public found it pretty smelly and didn't find that acceptable. So you can be within the rules and it not be acceptable to voters.
Sam Lister is the Deputy Political Editor at the Daily Express. A pleasure meeting you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Come back again.
Absolutely.
See you again soon. Thank you. 6:10 is the time. Good morning to you. We're on radio, we're on television, and we're here bringing you the news.
Councillors in York have voted unanimously to remove the honorary Freedom of the City from Prince Andrew.
Now, that move comes in the wake of his out-of-court settlement, which many are now calling for the Prince to be stripped of his Duke of York title. Our reporter Anna Riley went to the meeting in York where this vote took place.
On Wednesday evening, City of York councillors voted to strip the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, of his Freedom of the City honour given to him in 1987. The honorary freedom is bestowed by the city to recognise notable service by local residents, to distinguish people and to royalty. But after the sexual assault case brought against Prince Andrew by Virginia Giuffre, which was settled out of court, councillors decided it would no longer be appropriate for him to hold the honour. Councillor Darryl Smalley, City of York Council Executive Member for Culture, Leisure and Communities, told GB News this vote took place to protect the city's reputation.
So I proposed the motion to remove the honorary freedom today, just to distance York from Prince Andrew. I think we've had many months now of our city being linked with him as those allegations came out, as the court case rumbled on and the subsequent reaction to it. And we're only acting in a similar way to the Queen. The Queen recognised that he was doing reputational damage to those military patronages and other honours and positions that he held, and so it's only right that as a city council we act as well. We're doing great work in trying to end violence against women and girls and tackle misogynistic hate crime. It feels at odds that we're doing all that work and then at the same time having someone, an ambassador of our city, with serious allegations against his name, and so that's why we felt the need to act in the way we have.
Prince Andrew relinquished his honorary military titles and his HRH style in January, following the sexual assault claims that were brought against him. Now, after removing his Honour of the City title, councillors here in York say the next logical step is for Buckingham Palace and for the government to remove Prince Andrew's Duke of York title in order to sever all links that the Prince has with the city. Anna Riley, GB News, York.
Your views on that, we want to know what you think. Is there anything left to be said about the Duke of York and how long should he remain the Duke of York? I would say that title's safe.
I would say that title's safe. Some people, even I've been reading some responses that they thought this was quite petty by the City of York. Let us know your views this morning. We'd love to hear them.
Yeah, at GB News on Twitter and gbviews@gbnews.uk.
OK, with the time at 6:13, the latest headlines for you. And a minister at the Home Office has said that the Tory MP who allegedly watched pornography in the House of Commons should be expelled from the party if the claims are correct. Rachel McLean, who's the minister responsible for safeguarding women, called the behaviour shocking and unacceptable.
The Foreign Secretary says the war in Ukraine must act as a catalyst for the West to overhaul its approach to international security. Liz Truss says the UK and its allies need to stand up to aggressors around the world who try to exploit their economic power.
Let's be honest. The architecture that was designed to guarantee peace and prosperity has failed Ukraine. We also reject the false choice between Euro-Atlantic security and Indo-Pacific security. In the modern world, we need both. We need a global NATO. By that, I don't mean extending the membership to those from other regions. I mean that NATO must have a global outlook, ready to tackle global threats.
A man's been charged with the murder of the missing mother of two, Katie Kenyon. It's believed she travelled in a Ford Transit van from Burnley towards Bolton by Bowland last Friday morning, and she hasn't been seen since. Lancashire Police say 50-year-old Andrew Burfield will appear at Blackburn Magistrates Court later.
Well, you were just hearing in our news roundup there that the Foreign Secretary has warned that the Ukraine war could last as long as a decade.
Yes, well, speaking at that keynote foreign policy speech last night in London, Liz Truss said that the UK and its allies must do more to push Russia out of Ukraine, noting that there will be terrible consequences across the globe if Putin succeeds.
You know, it is interesting that, people are saying a decade, 10 years, yet we've got these soundings from Russia that they will retaliate against the UK, and Vladimir Putin says he would use nuclear weapons against any country that dares to interfere with Russia's war in the Ukraine. I mean, how long does this go on, or is everybody just in fear and dread of this little man's tough talks?
And I suppose we've seen this kind of escalation of rhetoric in the last few days. At what point do we start to actually think he could fire a nuclear weapon towards Britain, for example? When do we...
But Trump was interesting this week when he was talking about and saying that basically Putin was scared of him because he knew that Trump meant business, and Trump was basically saying, mine is bigger than yours. You know, I've got more missiles to fire towards you than you have with us. I mean, you've got the whole of the rest of the world basically saying, just try it, Vladimir, just try it, see what happens.
If in Putin you have someone who doesn't fear for his own life, doesn't care, I mean, there's all the rumours, aren't there, that he's suffering from some sort of terminal cancer and that this is, he's got nothing to lose, then you can't negotiate with that person. We've seen time and again, he isn't afraid to do things that will hurt his country. He's facing all these economic sanctions. Just yesterday, we had the situation with blocking oil from gas to Bulgaria and Poland, and this was over the fight over wanting it all to be traded in rubles. It's going to hurt himself by doing that because he's not going to get the funds that he needs. But he's not afraid. He's not deterred by that. So how do you reason with him?
How much do people in Russia really know about what is going on and what is being done in their name? Later on in the programme today, we're going to be speaking to a head of intelligence officer about all of this, and we're just sort of speculating and giving you a general picture of what goes on. As a matter of fact, I'm told we have her now, and she is Louise Jones, head of intelligence at Mackenzie Intelligence Service. Louise, I don't know much of that you heard from us there, but basically the Foreign Secretary is saying we've got to do more, we've got to step up to the plate, and this war... You get two trains of thought, don't you, that this war could go on forever, for a very long time, at least 10 years, or Putin could just press the button and it'll be over for all of us. Where do you stand on this, or what do you think? What do you think of what the Foreign Secretary said last night?
So I think she's bang on, really. So this war could go on for many months, if not years. I mean, we've seen some movement in the past few weeks. Obviously the Russians made progress around Kiev, they moved back, and it's kind of given the illusion that this is quite a manoeuvrous war where we'll see ground lost and gained very quickly. But actually, I think now what we'll start to see is that the Russians have now been able to consolidate slightly more down in the southeast, where they're a little bit stronger, where they've been in the Donbass for a long time now, for several years. And so the Ukrainians are now going to have to really fight for every inch of ground that they're able to gain. And I think really what we'll start to see is that this will go over several months. Neither side that I've seen have looked prepared to really make, concrete progress with peace talks. President Zelensky has been so clear, hasn't he, that he hasn't wanted to cede a single inch of ground to Russia, be that in the Donbass or Crimea. And President Putin certainly isn't backing down either. As to where President Putin goes from here, I think it's very much the Russian modus operandi to make threats. He's in a slightly weakened position now. He's played some of the main cards in his hand. He's deployed forces on the ground. He's really played his trump card of the oil and gas supplies, threatening the oil and gas supplies. And really, that's not gained very much traction with European countries. Pretty much every European country is certainly looking at stopping their oil and gas supply from Russia over the next few months. And then Putin is helpfully making up their minds for those who are still wavering, such as Poland and Bulgaria. So really, President Putin has only really got threats left that he's able to do.
What did you make of the Foreign Secretary's comments about China in all of this, really warning them and needing to condemn Putin? I mean, we could do more, couldn't we, and kind of put pressure on China?
So I think China has a long-standing policy of trying to remain neutral. In some cases that means it feels like they're really their silence is enabling Russia. But I think it's very unlikely that this stance, as far as they're concerned, Russia is a regional rival. They've got a very long land border with Russia. As far as they're concerned, this is Russia and the West who are, taking chunks out of each other, and it suits China to stay aloof from it. And Western pressure, China doesn't really react very well to Western pressure. So I think that the Western strategy of supporting Ukraine, sending arms, sending intelligence, I think that is what is really having an effect on the ground in Ukraine.
What do you think about, Putin saying he will use nuclear weapons against any country that dares to interfere with the war in Ukraine? What do you think? First of all, how legitimate would that intention be? And secondly, what do you think the West should be doing about that? How should they be responding?
So, again, President Putin, this kind of talk is easy to start. President Putin and Russia have, over the past couple of decades have, repeatedly acknowledged that a nuclear war must never be fought and would never be won by whichever side deployed the weapons. So, we're a very long way from any kind of threshold where Russia would even start to really seriously think about using nuclear weapons. As I say, Russia is just trying to find a way to press buttons in the West. They're at the moment, they're reaching around to see what will work. They are bringing Transnistria, so it's a region of Moldova, a country neighbouring to Ukraine, where there are Russian forces, peacekeepers, they say, that are stationed there. They are trying to bring that into the conversation to see if that will put pressure on the West. So really, they're just looking around to see what kind of strategy will work. And I think the West would do well to just concentrate on where Ukraine is winning and just keep going with the strategy it's delivering.
Mm. So if Putin's talking about using a nuclear weapon or two towards the West, I mean, would you have any idea, Louise, how many Western nukes are trained on Russia at this moment, and from what countries, us being one of those countries?
So Russia will have its list of high priority targets and, have its weapons at various states of readiness, just as we do. The UK has its continuously at sea deterrent, where we've always got a submarine armed with nuclear weapons at sea. And Russia will have something similar. Again, the main aim of the main point of nuclear weapons is as a deterrent, not offensive weapon, and that applies to Russia just as much as it does to the West. Of course, they'll have some targets in mind, but I think we're a long way really away from Russia being able to being in a place where President Putin's got the buy-in from his advisors, from the rest of his government to start escalating. One thing where Russia does differentiate slightly from the West is that whilst the West's nuclear weapons are strategic pretty much, Russia has some slightly smaller ones, which it sort of misnames as tactical, where it has developed some of those. But again, we're a long way from that. I would expect to see the war in Ukraine become considerably more dangerous for Russia. That is, if Ukrainian forces were actually had swept away Russian forces within Ukraine and were threatening Russian territory. I would have expected to see Western forces be deployed in Ukraine. I would expect there to have been use of conventional weapons between NATO. We're a really, really long way up the escalation ladder from nuclear weapons being a serious threat.
Louise Jones, thank you so much for your take on things, your overall view there. Appreciate you taking the time. Louise is Head of Intelligence at Mackenzie Intelligence Services. Thank you very much indeed.
Stay with us. Coming up after the break, we'll be discussing why the Passport Office is really struggling to cope as 500,000 people are still waiting. Are you one of them? Let us know. First of all, here's your forecast.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deacon with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Another chilly one out there this morning, but another dry day. It's been a very dry April so far. Sunny spells for some, but not all. High pressure is controlling our weather, keeping things dry, but around high pressure, the winds go clockwise, and so feeding in some moisture from the North Sea. It's eastern parts of England that are likely to see a lot of grey weather again today. Quite a glum start for much of Yorkshire down to East Anglia today, and that cloud spreading into parts of the Midlands at times. Much of southern England, Wales, good part of Scotland, Northern Ireland, dry and fine, although we will see a few showers drifting in across the Western Isles, perhaps late in the day. With the sunshine, well, it does make a big difference to the feel of the day. Not particularly warm, but after a chilly start, pleasant enough in the sunshine. 16 in Cardiff, 17 in Southampton, Hull, Lincoln down to Norwich, just 11 or 12 with the cloudier conditions here. That's going to feel pretty fresh. During this evening, that cloud may break up a little bit more over parts of eastern England before more cloud then comes in from the North Sea through the early hours. A bit more cloud developing across parts of Scotland as we go through the night as well, and that'll lead into a few more showers perhaps on Friday. Again, for most, it's dry and clear tonight, so again, gardeners take note. Frost is possible, certainly in rural areas over northern England, Wales, Northern Ireland and southern Scotland. Again, on Friday, tomorrow's looking fairly cloudy over eastern England, some sunny spells possible, and more cloud over northern and eastern Scotland. Could provide one or two scattered showers, but for the vast majority it's dry, and again, much of the west seeing blue skies, sunny spells, and feeling pretty pleasant in the sunshine. 16, 17, maybe 18 Celsius. Where it stays cloudy, we're only looking at temperatures just a little bit above double figures. High pressure hanging around then for the next few days, keeping things dry. Some wet weather in the northwest later on Saturday, but for many, the first day of the bank holiday weekend will stay dry and fine.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome Welcome back. The time is 6:29. Still to come on this morning's programme, Stop Spending, Shop Smarter. From batch cooking to meal plans at 6:45. Kate Hardcastle's going to be in the studio with us, sharing her top tips when it comes to cutting the costs of your grocery
And indeed,
shopping.
if you've got any top tips to share with us, do tweet us at GB News, and we'll be glad to bring that into the conversation. Coming up in the next hour, really annoys me.
Me too.
Fly tipping. Fly tipping. What sort of vermin gets involved in that? We laugh.
No, I just love that. I love it when you go down this road.
And it attracts vermin as well.
It does, yeah.
I mean,
and apparently it's quite often these people who say, if you're moving house, we'll move stuff for you,
Yeah.
we'll recycle it, and then they go and
dump it up a
fly
country
tip
lane
it. So
somewhere.
let us know if you've been affected by
They
it.
should
Been
be
dumping it
clamped
on
in
your
irons.
doorstep.
I would say stronger than that, but then people can't distinguish between what is a joke.
That's
you know.
true, yeah, it's called a joke. It's
So
not
to
literal.
all the wokies out there, only kidding, but we don't like them. We don't like fly tippers, and those gangs are on the rise, OK?
Yes, so we'll be talking about
He's being mean
that.
to fly tippers. He's being mean to them.
So let us know your thoughts this morning and, get in touch the usual ways. You can tweet us at GB News, or you can get in touch on email, gbviews@gbnews.co.uk.
You finished now?
Well,
Done.
it's just I wasn't sure because the autocue seems to have gone to sleep. So let's move on, shall we?
Autocue? 6:30 is the time. And join in any of our discussions. Please do get involved. The Prime Minister's Chief of Staff is meeting with the Passport Office today as Downing Street aims to avert a growing crisis over the passport backlog, right? It stands. How many people are waiting?
Yeah, 500,000. So we want to know, are you affected by this morning? Those who need their passport renewed are being urged to apply now to help ensure they get the documents in time for the summer holidays.
Well, our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, has been on top of this one. Here's his report.
After 2 years of effective COVID lockdown, unsurprisingly, millions of Brits are desperate to get away this summer. But the dream of foreign beaches is fast becoming a nightmare for increasing numbers of people who are being caught up in delays at the passport agency. Huge demand post-COVID has tripled the normal processing time for people like Sophie Power, who've experienced long delays in receiving their passport and accompanying documents. In her case, putting a new job overseas at risk.
It's been incredibly stressful, especially when you're on the phone to people that just don't have any answers. I was told weeks ago that Liverpool had my passport on the 28th of March. Well, we're now nearing mid to end April, and there was no other information, which was when they discovered that the likelihood was actually that the document was lost.
In a normal year, 7 million passport applications would be received. This year, the Passport Agency expects to receive 9.5 million applications. Before the pandemic, processing a standard passport application would take around 3 weeks. Now the Passport Agency is warning people to be prepared for possible delays of up to 10 weeks. Much of the delay is being blamed on the pandemic, which saw 5 million passports expire over the 2 years of lockdown. Many of those owning out-of-date passports delayed renewing them and are only now going through that process. But the Passport Agency is still being accused of failing to prepare properly for a foreseeable surge in demand.
We've had one constituent who, if she doesn't get a passport in the next week or so, is going to miss out on a job she's secured in America. We've had another who missed, young girl who missed half of her holiday in the end, just managed to make her uncle's wedding, but looked set to miss out there. We've had a third constituent just yesterday who's had to cancel their holiday because they've been waiting 13 weeks for the passports. And from the perspective of the government, they've just got to sort this shambles out as a matter of urgency.
Downing Street's Chief of Staff is meeting face-to-face with Passport Agency management today. The last thing the Prime Minister wants is a growing backlash from an angry public unable to get their passports in time. In the meantime, the Passport Agency is urging applicants to use digital photo booths, where they receive an automated digital code to help ensure their online applications are dealt with more speedily. Mark White, GB News.
You know, that added to everything else, you just can't believe how difficult it is to travel. I mean, it's as if they're doing everything they can to make it impossible for us to travel.
Tell you what, we've been appealing for people to get in touch if they're waiting for their passport to come through. What about if you work in the passport office and you're fed up of everybody bashing you? Are you working from home? Let us know.
What if you're
which
sitting
side of the
watching
argument.
us today instead of printing out passports? You know, there's no one.
Yeah, so get in touch. We'll talk about that this morning. We've had a few views. Should we go through some of the views? On Partygate, Steve has said, Starmer's situation is totally different. Where in the photo is there any cake? There's no cake. It's not a party without a cake. Fair point, Steve. You're probably right. Prince Andrew says David says Prince Andrew should lose.
So what, Prince Andrew's been in touch to say David should...
David says Prince Andrew should lose all his privileges as he was supposed to be representing the UK in quite a lot of events and is now the laughingstock of the world at our expense.
Oh, here's Linda. I love you, Linda. I agree with Eamonn about almost everything that he says.
No, sorry, it doesn't say that.
What?
It says I agree with Eamonn about York City Council being petty. And I thought it was me that said that, actually. Linda, come on.
No, Linda's my woman. I'm a York resident. I'm not too bothered about what they call Prince Andrew. I'm not a fan of his. But what I am bothered about is this wonderful city gradually going down the pan and councillors ignoring problems. Well, you'll have your chance at the election coming up. So rough sleepers everywhere. Streets are dirty. Also nice to see the councillors back in the office because the staff are still working from home. WHF, I thought that was an obscenity there. WFH, working from...
You never know with some of the emails, you've got to be careful.
I've voted for you two, by the way. Best breakfast show by Country Line.
Linda.
Love you, Linda. Absolutely brilliant.
Diane takes the complete opposite view. As a Yorkshire person, I totally agree with York City Council. Keep your thoughts coming in. We've got to take a break. After that, we'll be talking to Liz Kershaw and David Wooding about all the big stories of the day. See you in a sec.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Thank you very much indeed. Time to go through the papers.
I tried to tidy up, just to explain. I like to keep it neat on this desk. If we have a wide shot, you can see. And it's a losing battle that I fight day after day.
Yes, because I can't reach.
And then in the advert break, just pass me that paper.
Can't reach any of the papers. We've got the paper review today. Sun on Sunday political editor David Wooding is here, together with the broadcaster Liz Kershaw. And if we look at the paper I was trying to reach for, Liz, it's there, front page of the Metro, pretty plain. Porn MP exposed. Probe into claims a senior Tory was caught watching smut on phone in Commons.
Yeah, I think exposed is a bit...
An unfortunate, please let's not.
Well, firstly, I'd just like to say that with everything that's going on in the world, you know, World War III, Putin explicitly threatening to nuke us, vaporise us, the terrible winter we're facing, we'll come on to it throughout the morning, hikes in mortgage rates and, you know, people not being able to pay the mortgage. It's going to be a long, cold, hard winter with expensive food and food shortages. And the front pages. If it's not cake, which it is again, cake and pizza, it's watching porn in the Commons.
Which you're obviously implying isn't important.
I don't think it's the number one.
But you see, again, can I just say something?
I think it's just that it's... I think it's sensationalised to sell newspapers.
Yes, But we tie this in to Cakegate, Partygate, whatever. Yeah. We are reducing people who should set a standard, people who should set an example to other people, and we let it slip all the time. So one minute it's having a party, breaking your own rules. The next minute it's saying, what are we doing here? What are they debating? Let's watch a bit of porn here just while we're sitting, just during the newspaper review.
I'm not laughing about that. It's a serious matter.
Yes, but you're saying it doesn't matter.
No, I'm not. I'm saying it's not the thing that will have the most impact on our lives. It's not as important.
Do you not think it's slightly weird? You know, if whatever this man does in his own personal life or whatever it is, his downtime, fine, good luck to him. But you're at work. Would you not think it's really weird, creepy, if I was sitting beside you now and you and I were working at a desk?
Yeah. I'd think it was very creepy and I can't see the point of it. It's like sitting in the Commons watching adverts for McDonald's and not being able to have one. Isn't it? You can't have a quarter pounder. So why are you looking at me?
Thinking about it too much.
Wait a minute, there's too much words like quarter pounder being not thought about here.
No. But my thought on this is why are MPs on the phones? There's a photograph, I'll bring it in next time, and it's like a centre spread, possibly in the Times, and it's like an aerial shot.
Yeah.
David sees this all the time from the press gallery. It's an aerial shot of Parliament, which is 1,000 years old. They didn't used to have people charging in all the time, having ridden over hill and dale with a message from York or something. Why do they think they're so important that they have to have their phones?
They're issued, David, with iPads now, aren't they?
Yeah, and a lot of them are tweeting during PMQs. They're sitting there, because I sit up in the press gallery above them looking down. All the journalists have got their phones off. They could be looking at the football match or porn or whatever as well, I guess. But most of them are tweeting live during the game.
I don't think people have a problem with journalists doing that.
No, exactly. And you look down in the Commons, you see lots of MPs with them out, and they're either taking messages, most of them, or tweeting as well.
Self-promoting.
The phone is... Nobody can put the phone down.
Let's cut to the chase then, David. You know, you're in Parliament. You've presumably not seen who it was, but there's obviously we can't name them for lots of good reasons, but are there names floating around? I mean, do people suspect there is a person that people seem to know who it is?
There are names floating around and there are speculation about who it might be, and you know, we've had names of people coming from all sorts of sources. In fact, I've had more people texting me and asking, who is it?
Yeah. You know, but the big thing, you know, we've got did Angela Rayner deliberately flash her legs this week? We've got the cake, we've got the pizza, we've got this. We've got 53 MPs reported for sexual misconduct. Very serious. And I've socialised in the House of Commons and I've seen what goes on. And I've been the victim's too strong a word of it myself. You have to really look after yourself, especially if you're a woman in the strangers bar, etc. And on the terrace after several PIMs, 11 o'clock at night. I'm not dismissing the serious. I'm just saying that we have such grave problems. I wonder whose agenda it is that these are at the forefront of everything. It's kind of pushing. You know, it's like there was a sketch on Not the 9 O'Clock News 30 years ago. and it was a spoof of a news programme, and it said, and it literally said, tonight, the outbreak of World War III. But we ask, does sitting in a comfy chair really relax your legs?
Mm-hmm.
And it's that sort of distraction that I'm not...
Yeah, but if the people who are supposed to be, you know, running the country or holding the people running the country to account are not keeping their eye on the ball and watching porn, then it is relevant to World War III. It is relevant to the cost of living crisis, all the other issues. So these are the guys that are in Parliament.
Liz, it's about balance, you know, really. You cannot put World War III on the front page every day, and if you were to put the most important story in real terms on the front page every day, it would just be totally Ukraine every day and nothing else in the first 10 pages of the paper. So what you have to do is mix and match it a bit. You know?
Well, for instance, today, why isn't the unlawful behaviour of the NHS and the Health Secretary during the pandemic on the front page, where 50,000 people, including my mum, were kicked out of hospital just because they were old?
I think what David was alluding to is that because it probably doesn't sell newspapers.
No, I'm saying, that's the point I'm making, Eamonn. I was saying this is just sensationalising stories in order to sell.
Well, let's sensationalise it further.
OK.
Do you guys think, David, do you think that anybody caught, if they were found guilty of this, should be sacked from their job? Because in the real world, you probably would be.
You would be. The difference with an MP is that he or she is elected by us. And so the only way of doing that is through the system of recall, or in fact, more simply kicking them out at the next election. What could happen, though, is that their party could withdraw the whip. So if you're a Conservative MP or
Maybe
a Labour MP, you're no... Depends which side you're looking at, okay?
Oh, gosh, right.
Maybe Sir Lindsay Hall should be more concerned about that than calling in newspaper reporters to study.
Should we talk about this care home scandal? It's inside the Mail, isn't it, David? Page 8. Heat on Hancock. And we were talking about it earlier with Sam Lister from The Express. And you know, Matt Hancock doesn't come out of this well.
No. So what's happened here is that the two daughters of two men who died following the COVID outbreak have gone to court, and it's been ruled in the High Court by a couple of judges that Matt Hancock, who was then the Health Secretary, and Public Health England were to blame. Now, of course, if you look back to the pandemic, something like 20,000 people died in care homes, having been transferred from hospitals, and what was not happening was they weren't being tested for COVID because at the time there was no evidence to prove that there was asymptomatic COVID. Now, Matt Hancock has written a piece in The Telegraph as well today defending himself. Matt is going through, I think I may have said this on earlier paper reviews, he's been writing a bit in papers over the past few weeks, trying to rehabilitate himself and get back on
He was
the
on
front
Dan
foot
Wootton
and
last
make
week
return.
as part of his lockdown inquiry.
And he's saying, you know, we were based on the evidence we had at the time. We had we could only go with what we had. Not my fault, Gov. But of course, the court has said that it is him, and it does throw open the doors to people prosecuting and holding him and the government to account.
We moved to the front page of the Times, Elizabeth, with you, and I honestly started reading this, and I thought, this is a joke. That prison governors and officers have been ordered. Now, I never knew these words existed, right?
No.
So if you talk about a prisoner or an inmate or whatever, no, that's not what you are calling them these days. You call them residents, clients or service users. I'm sure they're loving to use that service. Anyway, Dominic Raab, the Justice Secretary, he says he wants to biff words like this, woke language like this.
Yeah, and last month he visited a prison in Northamptonshire where he did not oppose the use of these terms. It's just such a microclimate of wokeness.
It's just...
Imagine referring to people who've, you know, blown kids apart at a pop concert or murdered a whole family in the home, or been a drugs trafficker, county lines using little kids to run drugs across, calling them a service user.
Well, I tell you what, I mean...
You don't get that respect if you're
young
a
reporters,
a
previous place I worked in, and they would call murderers and inmates by their first name. James was accused of murdering his wife and all her children, but he's trying to turn his life around. James, you know, you give them their surname, their they're guilty as sin. They're behind bars. They're behind bars
Not
for
your
a
friends.
reason.
No, they're not behind
They're
bars.
not your
They're
friends.
not behind bars, Eamonn. They have rooms, not cells. They're in rooms.
Rooms.
Yes.
And so it's like a hotel.
We don't call them convicts when they go out. We call them leavers, or people who are being sent back into the community.
Not ex-cons.
And there's one evidence today that one of the governors is known as John to his staff and his.
Oh, do you know? I hate that. Even as teachers, calling a teacher John, Mary, whatever.
Yeah, I hate that.
You know, even now when I go back to my school,
too.
and they say to me, "Oh, call me Mary," or whatever, and I say, "No, Mrs. Robinson, no, I can't. I can't do that." But all this idea, teachers are not your mates. Your parents aren't even your mates. You know, there's people...
We had a teacher and we used to call him, "Call me Dave." That's how we referred to him, because he was coming in, you know.
Cool.
So Jason King moustache, this was the 70s, sat on the corner of the desk in his corduroy jacket and flares and said, "Call me Dave." So that's all.
Call me Dave.
We had no respect for
If only he had have known what the pupils were really calling him. There's always a name for people like that. Guys, back in 40 minutes. Thank you very much indeed, Liz Kershaw and David Wooding there. The time, just approaching 10 minutes to 7 o'clock.
So MPs are calling for a radical overhaul of the NHS compensation system. It costs more than £2 billion a year, and the Health and Social Care Committee say the current system for compensating patients who suffer harm in England is not fit for purpose.
The number of children in custody in England and Wales is expected to more than double by September. By September 2024, that is, we should say. The National Audit Office says more 15 to 17-year-olds will be in young offenders institutions due to court recovery from the pandemic, a new crime bill, and higher police recruitment.
Protesters in St Lucia say they want the Queen to apologise for slavery. It comes as the Earl and Countess of Wessex continue their royal tour of the Caribbean to mark the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Let us know your thoughts on that story this morning.
OK, look, we know the big story with you guys. You're facing an increase in all your bills, right? Your energy bills, your council tax, national insurance tax rise, inflation, all these sort of things. You don't need me to tell you all of this. But today, we are getting the top tips you need to shop smarter and save more with Kate Hardcastle here. Kate, what are your top tips for shopping smarter? Let's start with that.
Well, a lot of the time, I think most of us shop blind. And what I mean by that is we're distracted. So you're looking at the phone or you're talking to somebody, you're trying to keep the kids in check. And that means we're susceptible to the offers and promotions that are placed there. And I used to be in retail, so I know what's happening, to make us think we're getting a bargain when perhaps we're not. So things like shopping high and shopping low is one of the top tips, because the ease of grab height, the middle of any aisle, is going to be the products they want you to have. The bargains are going to be harder to reach. So it's about getting in control in the driving seat and understanding that if we also waste, the average household wastes 60 quid of food a month, we can get on top of that by a bit of planning. So I think it's all about preventative measures rather than just getting concerned about the fact that costs are going up and we've no control over that. We still do.
Are those supermarkets and other, retailers still sort of pulling the wool over our eyes with some of the deals? When it's sort of buy one, get one free, is that usually a good way to buy, or is that actually the supermarkets kind of tricking you?
Nothing's a deal unless you need it, and that's why we've got to get planned. Now, I think when it comes to the grocery shop, because we know we have to get the provisions in, we don't tend to think about it. It's a must-have. But actually, we're quite out of control. It's those top-up shops where you're spending £20 here or there, going in and buying a few more biscuits, and then, like I say, throwing that food away is a huge challenge on the fridge and freezer, where we've just got items just going to waste. We've got to get in control of it. If we saw that as cash, I don't think we'd behave in the same way. And I think we've got to be realistic. The average household in the UK is a month away from financial challenges. So we've got to make sure that we are in control of every single bit of spend. And if we are chucking away 60 quid of food a month and we aren't in control of that weekly spend, that's one of the more variable spends in each week that we can get back on control of.
Do you not think that however careful you may be with your grocery shopping, it can all be wiped away by some sort of impulse buy? And I'm not talking about food or whatever, I'm talking about, oh, I want that coat or those shoes, or there's just things we go, really? You've really got to think about this.
Completely. We buy emotionally, and that's what retail depends on. But the fact is, if we do buy emotionally and then we're trying to play catch-up all a month, it puts us under stress the other way. So something that can make you feel good for one day, 1 hour, can actually make you feel really sad for the next few weeks as you try and counterbalance that and eat beans on toast, as I used to. I've been through this. I know what
But
this
I like
feels
beans
like.
and toast.
I do too.
Not for 3
Every
weeks.
day.
No,
Yeah, yeah.
one
No,
does for 3
no,
weeks.
I know what you mean, but I'm talking about certain simplicity things where we're convinced, because we watch television, we're convinced we must go to Deliveroo or Just Eat, and we must order something bigger and fancier, and instead, sardines on toast or beans on toast might be okay. I mean, my problem is that my wife does the grocery shopping in our house, and therefore she buys lots of things I don't like.
Right.
So that's what leads to food wastage.
It does.
Because you open up the fridge and I'd say, there's nothing to eat in this house. You say, nothing to eat. There's avocados and there's young beans.
chocolate.
And there was no chocolate.
I know.
You'll never find a piece of chocolate in our house.
Is that true?
Not in the open, anyway.
He's looked, believe me, he's looked.
No, listen, I want to tell you. I was in Waitrose yesterday, right, buying chocolate for someone. And anyway, I went up and there was an article on Isabel and I in a magazine that I lifted, and there was chocolate, whatever. And they wanted me to do my own packing and all that sort of thing. And I thought, I'm not doing this. And there was a lovely woman called Sue there who was on a till, and she said, come to me. And I went to Sue, and she was very professional. She did what she had to do, and she finished, and she said at the end of it, and congratulations to you and Isabel. I will see you in the morning. Me and my husband watch. And they say that you've got the mix just right.
Oh, yeah?
Just right
that's nice.
on the
Thanks,
programme.
Sue.
So it was nice to get that feedback.
Yeah, well, congrats to you both on your award nominations. I know that's very important, but that's because you talk about important things like the cost of living. So I'm going to give you some top tips if I can.
Yes, please.
We've got
Yeah,
time.
yeah, 100%.
So first and foremost, I want you to start planning what's in your fridge and freezer. And one of the ways I do that is I've got a wipe clean magnetic board on the front of my fridge. So I'm noting down everything and all the expiration dates. I'm batch cooking, which I know Isabel does really well. I was very proud of you to see that post. But we need to get those meals in front. So if it's something that Mrs Holmes perhaps hasn't made for you, Eamonn, you need to get it out of the freezer ready to go.
Mrs Holmes batch cooks.
Yeah, she's brilliant. She's
Yeah.
brilliant. But then she buys things like feta cheese.
It's delicious. Anyway, let's keep with the tips.
Well, mozzarella's like eating rubber.
Oh, it's delicious, especially when it's melted. It's stringy. Anyway, so batch cooking is a definite.
Batch cooking, fridge and freezer monitoring, going to the supermarket with a list, drawing cash out to pay for your supermarket shopping.
Nobody takes cash.
They do in the supermarkets, Eamonn. They do. I
See
promise
this
you.
haircut?
Yeah.
Cash. Cash. That was the only way they were accepting.
Because they can't refund you.
Only Isabel can say that.
So you're saying if you take cash, it's not like swiping a card, because you actually know I've given 2 of those big notes there
Once
for
a week. So then if you've seen those offers, or even in the supermarkets, there are a lot of other items that aren't food related that we might pick up on. We can't do it if we've got the cash out, can we? And we've left the cards at home. We've got enough for the list that we're going to spend. I think cash control.
So the cards, the interesting thing, the cards are limitless almost. It's like you in your mind, whatever your budget is. If you've only taken £20 out with you, you can only spend £20. But if you've got a card, you can spend £60.
Absolutely, it's there to spend, isn't it? And you've got to get control. And I think, one of the things I will say as well is making finance visible in your house. Actually, don't make it one person's issue, make it everyone's. Put the food budget on the fridge. Get the kids involved with the planning. It's a good exercise for them. Education on finance is just something I think we are really, really struggling with in the UK. And I think anything you can do to show them importance of this in the home is going to help them.
You need to get into schools, Kate.
I'd love to.
They need a Kate Hardcastle in schools teaching our kids how to budget.
But this is the point I was bringing up with the Education Secretary last week. I mean, I just don't understand why we don't teach young people about money management, getting a mortgage, compound interest rates, whatever, because we are 2 examples of people who could have and should have been educated like that and weren't.
Oh, yeah. Don't ask me about these sorts of things. Kate, that's what you're there for.
That's what I'm here for. Good luck with the mozzarella.
Thanks for coming in bright and early. We love it. We're going to have to take a break. We'll be back at the top of the next hour. See you in a moment.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Durham police say they'll review whether Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer broke lockdown rules.
A very good morning to you wherever you're watching or listening from this morning. It's exactly 7 o'clock on Thursday, the 28th of April. You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. Durham police have opened the door to a renewed probe into claims that Keir Starmer broke lockdown rules in April last year. The Culture Secretary, Nadine Dorries, called for the Labour leader to be subjected to the same standards as the PM.
Councillors in York from all parties have voted unanimously to remove Prince Andrew's freedom of the city. The vote was accompanied by calls for the Queen to strip the Prince of his Duke of York title.
The Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has warned that the war in Ukraine could last up to a decade. In a major foreign policy address, she called President Putin a desperate rogue operator and warned China to play by the rules.
Prime Minister's threatening the Passport Office with privatisation as the backlog grows to 500,000, with travellers warned of a 10-week wait. Our Home Affairs editor Mark White will bring you a report on that very shortly.
And remember, we are the People's Channel. You can get involved in any of our discussions by tweeting at GB News, or you can email us, gbviews@gbnews.uk.
And please, you can also vote for us at the Television Radio Industry Club's Awards. If you go to trick.org.uk to show your support, to register your vote, to say that we are representing you the way perhaps other breakfast news channels are not. Give them one in the eye by registering your vote. Top story today, the police are considering a full probe into claims that Sir Keir Starmer also broke lockdown rules over drinks with other Labour officials.
Yeah, this comes as Durham police have said that it will now consider a request from the Conservative MP, Richard Holden, to review the decision that initially and controversially cleared the Labour leader. OK, we're going back to April last year. The Labour MP for the City of Durham, Mary Foy, she was there hosting an event. Party officials held a quiz and a social event on the evening that Sir Keir was there. However, Labour strongly deny that he took part in the quiz. And the Culture Secretary, Nadine Dorries, has come out saying that Starmer ought to be subjected to the same standards as the PM. Well, let's bring in our political correspondent, Tom Harwood, who joins us in the studio. And that's a fair point, isn't it? You know, if we are going to be talking about people in public office, then we ought to review this case.
Well, I think that's certainly the argument of the Conservatives, particularly people actually around Rishi Sunak, who was, of course, turning up slightly early for a meeting that happened to have a cake in a Tupperware box in it, and he seems to have been fined with an incredibly low bar. That is something that has privately actually really surprised a number of my colleagues in the lobby, in Parliament, in the press lobby. It does seem that the bar has been incredibly low from the Metropolitan Police to fine the Prime Minister and the Chancellor for the event that they have been fined. Now, there may be future events that may seem more egregious, we don't know, but for now, the only thing the Prime Minister and the Chancellor have been fined for was being in the Cabinet Room and singing Happy Birthday. Now, that does seem to be a very low bar. So if we're going to apply that same low bar to other events, well, fresh eyes are looking at that Sir Keir Starmer event in April 2021, the same month as the funeral of the Duke of Edinburgh. We all remember the Queen sitting alone by herself in Windsor for that funeral. Well, Sir Keir Starmer, in the same month, was in Durham sharing beers with his colleagues. Now, something he says was a work event, but we have this new information now that on that same evening, the Durham Labour Party put out an advert for a quiz. Clearly a social event there. Now, the Labour Party, of course, denying that Sir Keir Starmer took part in that quiz, but it does raise some very big questions. And the MP for Durham North West, Conservative Richard Holden, wrote to Durham Constabulary more than a week ago asking for them to answer certain questions about their investigation. And yesterday, I exclusively revealed that they had written back to him, that they had said they will be asking those questions of the investigation team. So really, this is the beginning of looking into, of re-examining
Tom,
exactly
let's
what went
be crystal clear on this, because this was at a time when virtual quizzes were happening all the time. People were trying to keep in touch with each other, but you're saying that this was different. They wanted people to turn up in person. They knew what they were asking for.
Well, that is the implication of the advert. There are still a lot of questions to be answered here, and this is exactly why Richard Holden wrote to Durham Constabulary to have those questions asked of the investigation team. There's many things that we simply do not know about this April 2021 event, and many, many more questions to ask. So I think there is a general consensus growing now that it's right that this is something that is looked into again, not because people want to have a vindictive political prosecution, but because when laws are applied, they should really be applied equally across the country. And we can't really have different police forces setting different bars by which coronavirus rules are interpreted.
And look, Sir Keir Starmer has been criticised even from members of his own party for going a bit too hard on Partygate, especially given the cost of living crisis, and the Labour Party is supposed to be the party for working people. Do you think we're going to see perhaps a change of tack from the Labour leader, given this heat that he's getting on this and those criticisms?
Well, it was very interesting yesterday in Prime Minister's Questions to see that it was the first Prime Minister's Questions in a long time where Partygate wasn't mentioned. The Labour Party leader went in hard, most of his questions, on the economy, on cost of living. Now, it's said that Lisa Nandy, Shadow Cabinet member, someone who's got a heart in the red wall, has been pleading with the Labour leader to stop talking about Partygate because it doesn't cut through with certain communities. Now, a lot of people are upset with the Prime Minister and generally politicians over it, but does it need to be repeatedly said again and again and again? Does it need to be the top of every news bulletin? Some in the Labour Party argue that that is actually potentially counterproductive and moving away from the conversation about the issues of which people care. And so, yes, it does seem to be that the Labour Party is going to focus more on the cost of living, particularly for this last week and a half, last week, I should say. We're on Thursday now. People go to vote a week today for those crucial local elections. So for the next 7 days, we will be hearing more from Labour about the cost of living and less about parties.
Although another distraction, arguably, that's going to dominate discourse, at least in Westminster, is about this MP who two Conservative women have called out for watching porn, one of the occasions, inside the House of Commons. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, this is the most extraordinary the revelation that was first reported by the Sun newspaper after 2 nights ago, a meeting of Conservative MPs focused on how to retain women in Parliament. Now, we have many more women in Parliament than we had a decade or two ago, but the rate at which women leave Parliament is higher than the rate at which men leave Parliament. So they were asking questions about how women could remain, and people started telling stories about what was going on, about the culture of the House of Commons. And one of those stories was that a male MP had been seen watching pornography in the chamber of the House of Commons, a really most extraordinary allegation that was then corroborated by a second female Conservative MP. So this seems to be a very serious situation. Now, we don't know the full details. We don't know exactly in what form this was said to have been done. It was first referred to the Conservative whips, Chris Heaton-Harris, the chief whip of the Conservative Party, and it has now been referred to the Parliamentary authorities. So that is an investigation that may now get underway if those 2 female Conservative MPs formally make that complaint.
Tom, leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. 9 minutes past 7.
Now, pensioners could be £2,300 worse off over the next 2 years due to what Labour calls broken Tory manifesto commitments. Data from the House of Commons Library show that pensioners have been uniquely hit by soaring energy costs, captured by spiralling inflation and a tax hike. And the Labour Party has reiterated its call for the government to push forward an emergency budget to tackle the current cost of living crisis. Well, let's get more on this from the Shadow Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. That's Jonathan Ashworth. Good morning.
But the thing is, Jonathan, the thing is, of course, all of that, which we will talk about, we will come back to, we're looking at how the newspapers aren't talking about that today, and they're talking about your leader, whether he had a bottle of beer or not, was at a quiz, and some other bloke in the Commons watching porn. That's what you're having to deal with in the news agenda today, and that's the sort of questions you're going to be facing all day.
Well, this story about somebody, a Conservative MP, apparently watching porn on his phone. I mean, it's shocking. Whoever he is, they've got to. I mean, I think they should suspend him, frankly. I mean, if they know who he is, don't put it into this other investigation. Suspend him from the Conservative Party. The thing is, it's shocking, but for me, it's also utterly depressing, because that building over there, that should be the arena, and it actually is still the arena where the big questions of the day are thrashed out, like this cost of living crisis and the fact that pensioners are really struggling. We should be talking about those issues in that building. And there is so much misogyny, sexism, bullying. We're hearing so many complaints. The culture has got to change. But I would also say, I think the vast majority of people still go into politics for public service. Your viewers might agree with me, they might disagree with me. They might think I'm a good guy, they might think I say daft things. It doesn't matter. MPs, on the whole, in my view, still go into this profession for public service for good reasons, because they want to improve things for society. Yet there are clearly people in that place who are behaving in utterly unacceptable ways, and we've got to sort it out. We've got to stamp it out. Enough is enough. This is not an appropriate way to behave in modern Britain.
And look, you did answer one part of that question from Eamonn, but he did ask you also about your leader, Sir Keir Starmer, front of the Daily Mail, talking about this review from the police up in Durham, Durham Constabulary, saying they will review this case. And it's right, isn't it, as Nadine Dorries says, that the Labour leader is held and subjected to the same standards as the Prime Minister?
I mean, but I don't think the two are comparable, to be frank, because, look, I mean, the police have looked into the situation in Durham and said there isn't a case to answer for. But I think Keir was in between meetings on Zoom calls. I think that's completely different to Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak, who wrote the rules to put us all into lockdown, of course, imposed the rules, told us we had to stick to the rules. And in Downing Street, I think there's been something like 50 fines now, and there could be even more fines. So Boris Johnson has really overseen a culture of rule breaking in his own Downing Street offices and home. So I don't think the two why
has
Tory
emerged.
MPs are preoccupied
With respect,
with
let
this.
the police look at it again. Why not let the police take another look? Given this 43-second clip has emerged, it used to be just a grainy picture of him, but he's now seen swigging beer, socialising, eating pizza. And it's also come to light that on that same date, the 30th of April, there was a quiz and a social event held by the Labour Party in that very location.
Well, as I understand, on the particular point about that quiz, there was not a social event that Keir Starmer attended. There wasn't a quiz that he attended. So that is, that is, as I understand it, that didn't happen. There was no socialising in person at a quiz, as I understand it. But look, the police have looked into this, and I do not think it's comparable to Boris Johnson, who wrote the rules, set the rules, told us that we all couldn't see our loved ones, etc., and the 50 fines in Downing Street that he has overseen. But it's up to the police. These things are a matter for the police. The police have looked into it, but I mean, it's up to them to. It's up to them to. These are their decisions.
Shadow Secretary of State, work and pensions are your brief, and that's what you're here to talk about. It just seems a tragedy to me that people who are of pensionable age, they've worked all their lives, and, you know, like everyone else, they're feeling the grip of the cost of living crisis, but they are going to be a lot worse off. Why is that? Can you explain that to us?
I mean, you know, this makes me really angry because people have, as you say, they've paid in. They've paid their stamps, as my mum would describe it. They've paid in all their lives. They've worked all their lives. They've contributed to this country. In some circumstances, served this country, either in the armed forces or in public services. And what's happening now is, because the pension was supposed to rise in line with something called the triple lock, that was supposed to guarantee a reasonable increase year by year. Boris Johnson broke that promise on the triple lock, and actually, because of where inflation is, he's now just imposed the biggest real terms cut in the pension for 50 years. For those pensioners who want to carry on working beyond the age of 65, and some do, because you know they want to work a bit flexibly because they still want to have some employment, they're now going to be paying this big Rishi Sunak national insurance rise as well on that income for the first time, or a proportion of it. And when you combine that with the energy bills, retirees are really worse off. And of course, when you're retired, you're on a fixed income. And I was in Wolverhampton yesterday talking to pensioners, and I was talking to someone from a food bank, and he was telling me more and more elderly people are turning up at food banks. They feel very embarrassed because they're often very proud. They don't want to be asking for handouts. But for the first time now, or that our food banks are seeing huge numbers or bigger numbers of pensioners and elderly people, which they never used to get before. So I really think pensioners have been betrayed by Boris Johnson. And pensioner poverty is rising again in this country.
But what can be done about that? That is the problem. Is there a solution?
Well, they shouldn't have broken that triple lock rise in the pension. That's the first thing.
So would you reinstate it?
You can do something about these heating bill. The triple lock should come back. And at the moment, they're saying they're going to bring it back. But we'll wait and see, because they've broken so many promises. But let's see whether they do bring it back in the future. The other thing you can do is, we know these gas and oil companies in the North Sea are making massive profits. Why don't we use a windfall tax on those profits and use that money to bring down the gas and electric bills for pensioners and other struggling households? And of course, we wouldn't have gone ahead with that very big national insurance increase that Rishi Sunak's just imposed on working people. So you can make different decisions in life. If you want to help people, you can help them. But of course, all the Tory MPs in this place are preoccupied with trying to save Boris Johnson. They should be focusing on their constituents who are struggling, who are skinned. They should be helping their constituents at the moment, not obsessing about whether it's Johnson or Sunak. Well, Sunak's sunk now, isn't he? But whether it's Liz Truss or Boris Johnson, that's all they're talking about over here.
Well, Rishi Sunak, in an interview with Mumsnet yesterday, hinted for the first time that he was considering that windfall tax. But look, we have to leave it there. Jonathan Ashworth, always good to have you on the programme. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, I was at a food bank in Belfast earlier in the year, and I sat down, and opposite me comes in to sit down and have a bit of breakfast. An impeccably dressed man, impeccably dressed. He was wearing Ralph Lauren stuff, whatever. And he was quite elderly, but obviously very proud, very dapper, whatever. And I said to him, I hope you don't mind me asking, but what are you doing here? And there's always circumstances you never think of. He said, my wife was the earner in the house, and she was younger than me, and she died. Gosh. And he said, and it was very sad to talk to him because he said, I have no income, or a very little income. I have nobody to support me. I've got nowhere to turn to, and if it wasn't for this place, he said, I just don't know what I would do. It was very, very humbling. And the thing is, it can happen to anybody. And one of our contributors said today, I think it was Kate Hardcastle, wasn't she? Every household is 1 month without income coming in, nearing crisis. So you've probably got enough to get you by for a month or so, but after that, it could happen to anyone. 18 minutes past 7 o'clock. The latest news sits like this.
Well, as we've been discussing this morning, a minister in the Home Office has said that the Tory MP who allegedly watched pornography in the House of Commons should be expelled from the party if the claims are correct. Rachel McLean, who's the minister responsible for safeguarding women, called the behaviour shocking and unacceptable.
Foreign Secretary says the war in Ukraine must act as a catalyst for the West to overhaul its approach to international security. Liz Truss says the UK and its allies need to stand up to aggressors around the world who try to exploit their economic power.
Let's be honest. The architecture that was designed to guarantee peace and prosperity has failed Ukraine. We also reject the false choice between Euro-Atlantic security and Indo-Pacific security. In the modern world, we need both. We need a global NATO. By that, I don't mean extending the membership to those from other regions. I mean that NATO must have a global outlook, ready to tackle global threats.
A man's been charged with the murder of the missing mother of two, Katie Kenyon. It's believed she'd travelled in a transit van from Burnley towards Bolton by Bowland last Friday morning. She hasn't been seen since. Lancashire Police say 50-year-old Andrew Burfield will appear at Blackburn Magistrates Court later today.
In York, a city that I haven't visited, I have to say, much remiss of me, but a lot of concentration there because there was a council meeting last night and the councillors have voted unanimously to strip Prince Andrew of his freedom of the city.
Yeah, this move comes in the wake of that out-of-court settlement over Virginia Giffey, with many more now calling for the Prince to be stripped of his royal title, the Duke of York. Well, our reporter Anna Riley went to the meeting in York where that vote took place.
On Wednesday evening, City of York councillors voted to strip the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, of his Freedom of the City honour given to him in 1987. The honorary freedom is bestowed by the city to recognise notable service by local residents, to distinguish people and to royalty. But after the sexual assault case brought against Prince Andrew by Virginia Giffey, which was settled out of court, councillors decided it would no longer be appropriate for him to hold the honour. Councillor Darryl Smalley, City of York Council Executive Member for Culture, Leisure and Communities, told GB News this vote took place to protect the city's reputation.
So I propose the motion to remove the honorary freedom today, just to distance York from Prince Andrew. I think we've had many months now of our city being linked with him as those allegations came out, as the court case rumbled on and the subsequent reaction to it. And we're only acting in a similar way to the Queen. The Queen recognised that he was doing reputational damage to those military patronages and other honours and positions that he held, and so it's only right that as a city council we act as well. We're doing great work in trying to end violence against women and girls and tackle misogynistic hate crime. It feels at odds that we're doing all that work and then at the same time having someone, an ambassador of our city, with serious allegations against his name, and so that's why we felt the need to act in the way we have.
Prince Andrew relinquished his honorary military titles and his HRH style in January, following the sexual assault claims that were brought against him. Now, after removing his Honour of the City title, councillors here in York say the next logical step is for Buckingham Palace and for the government to remove Prince Andrew's Duke of York title in order to sever all links that the Prince has with the city. Anna Riley, GB News, York.
Well, for more on this and to get some reaction, let's bring in our royal reporter, Cameron Walker. Good morning to you,
Good morning.
Cameron. Look, the writing was on the wall with this. You could see it coming, couldn't you, from York Council. Some people saying they think this is quite petty, others saying that this is the right call. How significant will this be for the Duke of York?
Well, I think it's the latest blow for Prince Andrew. First of all, the Queen stripped him of his honorary military titles and royal patronages. He's had to stop using his HRH title, and then, of course, as we've just heard last night, he lost the freedom of the city. Now, councillors in York, as well as the people of York, have signed petitions wanting him to, as well as voting, wanting him to lose his Duke of York title. Now, that is a lot more complicated than what happened last night. The Queen does not have the power, neither does the government really, to remove a title from him. Only an Act of Parliament can do that. So I guess the question is, do MPs feel as strongly as York City councillors suggested they did last night?
Yeah, it's embarrassing. I mean, when you get snubs like this, it may mean very little. I'm sure he doesn't visit York a lot, but that's his freedom of the city gone. But in a way, I think the message has been served, hasn't it? You're not welcome. Don't stick your head above the parapets. And if you do, you'll draw more attention to yourself and we'll strip you of more titles.
Well, you talk about drawing attention to yourself, Eamonn. It was only a couple of weeks ago where Prince Andrew escorted Her Majesty the Queen down the aisle at the Duke of Edinburgh's service of Thanksgiving at Westminster Abbey. And that's now raised questions as to whether he's going to have a more prominent role or be seen at the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations, which is something I don't think the palace would want to overshadow the event itself.
Speaking of not being welcome, how welcome are the Wessexes being made to feel on this tour? It feels like every day there's another headline in relation to this.
Yeah, so the protest that happened yesterday, again, we were talking about this on Monday, weren't we? There was only 10 people at this protest. It's a really small number of people. But you can't really deny that there is growing calls for reparations with it from the Caribbean region. And when Her Majesty is getting older now, and from speaking to people who I've been speaking to within the Caribbean regions, I think they see Her Majesty as, they really respect her as a person and her as an institution. I think perhaps when we go to the next generation, there'll be more calls for perhaps more republics within the region. So I think it's a bit unfair perhaps on the Earl and Countess of Wessex to be receiving quite so much coverage of the protests when they are doing
the royals
good work.
from doing these tours, isn't it? If it's going to just generate bad publicity for the royal family, it's actually doing the exact opposite of what they're setting out to do.
I know. I think it's a bit of a headache for Buckingham Palace because they're trying to do good things and, not cause controversial headlines. And just by going to the region, it seems they are doing so. So I think there's going to be a lot of questions asked as to the type of tours they're going on. But we've got Prince Charles and Camilla going to Canada in a couple of weeks. So I don't think that will cause quite as many issues. And we know from Clarence House, they say they're really going to reflect on Indigenous communities when they are there in Canada.
I'm going on a royal tour as well.
Are you?
On the open-top bus.
I don't think I'm giving you leave to go to this. We need you on that day, unless you're broadcasting for us.
It's a Sunday.
Oh, that's fine then. You're free. Yeah, do as you please.
Sunday. So I just have to practice. what I do to wave to people.
You're going to do the twiddle.
Yeah. I do that. And
there you go.
That's it. Okay.
You've got it.
That could be it.
Nailed
it. We'll say bye to you, and we're coming back right after this break because we're talking about something that makes our blood boil. Probably makes your blood boil too. You may have been a victim of all of this. It's fly tipping. Fly tipping gangs. How do they get away with it? Talking about that after the break.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle, and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
OK, welcome back. Coming up later on in the programme, we're talking to the hairdresser to the stars. He's had to close his salon doors after an unbelievable record 30 years at the top of his game. Nicky Clark's going to be joining us in the studio, reflecting on his illustrious career. That's just after 8:20.
And his
See what they did there? Illustrious locks. There you go.
Yeah. We're keen to hear from you throughout the programme. You know what to do. Get in touch, and you're going to be getting in touch about this next item. Fly tipping is what we're talking about here. A new studies reveal that fly tipping gangs, it's organised, they get money for doing this, are on the rise, and they're costing you, through your council tax, millions, right? And councils right across the UK. With me now, John Hayward Cripps. John, tell us about the organisation that you run.
I run Neighbourhood Watch Network, which is the overarching body for Neighbourhood Watch across the whole of the UK. So we've got something like 2.3 million members, households across England and Wales, and we've got about 90,000 volunteers. So it's a really big volunteer movement, people that are really out to reduce crime in their communities and make their communities better, safer, and look after people within their communities.
And they're on the lookout for these fly tippers, are they?
They are. I mean, they're all sorts of crime, but fly tipping particularly, we know it's a real eyesore. People hate it. We all hate it. And people, you know, one of the most important things we can do is report it.
Right.
So, and you've noticed a huge uptick in cases of it in the last year. And when we're talking about fly tipping, I mean, I think of things like mattresses, just like that. I've seen toilets, believe it or not, quite often
building waste, renovations of...
quite often in rural areas, so it could be at the gate of a field, but it looks like urban waste. And you're seeing more and more of this.
Yes, certainly our members are reporting more and more, particularly in the countryside, as you say. Lots of farmers reporting that 2 or 3 baths being dumped on their land, and that can't be from a house. That's got to be builders and people renovating properties and stuff, and it just gets dumped, and someone's got to move it. Either the farmer has to move it. We've had cases where farmers have had to not plough on a particular day because then they can't get into their field because there's a load of stuff.
But listen, is there big enough deterrence against the people that do this? Are they being caught? Are the police interested? Do the police have resources to deal with this?
That's quite a complicated question. It's usually councils that deal with fly tipping. Unless it's on a massive scale, then the police get involved. But they don't particularly have resources. Last year, there was something like a 16% increase in fly tipping, over 1 million cases, but fixed penalty notices went down by 25% and prosecutions went down by 50%.
Well, you see, here's the first thing. The police should be involved. We should be funding the police to do this. Because if you're in a squad car and you are patrolling country lanes or well-known hotspots for this, you're making it difficult for these people. You're deterring them. What the councils have to do is just basically be involved in the clean-up, the catch-up operation on this.
That's certainly true. I mean, I think the most important thing, as I say, we can all do is report it. I mean, if I ask both of you, have you ever reported fly tipping?
No.
And I think most of us don't. We just kind of go and think,
you assume
it's really
other
awful.
people see it.
Exactly.
Right, OK. If you're going to be caught as a fly tipper, what penalties do you face? How bad is it?
The penalties are not very severe for fly tipping.
Well, there you are. There's another problem.
The other way, then, that this can be tackled is through each of us, when we call up one of these recycling organisations that, you know, claim that for a small fee they'll take away your mattresses and your baths or whatever it might be. We need to do our due diligence and check them out and make sure that they aren't then not only profiteering but fly tipping.
We do. It's about 450 quid to get a licence to be a waste disposal, and we know that there are lots of gangs that have that licence. There's very few checks on them, and then they fly tip. I mean, it's like any sort of scams. I mean, Neighbourhood Watch should be really keen on any scamming. If it's too good to be true, if it's half the price of everybody else, there's a reason for that. It's because it'll probably end up on some farmers or down some back lane rather than it being disposed of properly.
How awful would it be to know that your house was being renovated or your waste was being taken away and then recognising down the road that is your waste?
You'd be mortified.
Yeah.
And you should be on the phone or on email and notifying your council and saying, actually, this is the person that I employed to do this, and I've just seen my bath, tiles, plasterboard, whatever it is, down the road.
It's not just dumping, it's blocking roads and access and all sorts of things as well. So at the end of the day, what has to be done? What do you need to change? Fantastic that the Neighbourhood Watch Network are involved in this and they're reporting things, but what's going to stop it?
I think, one, proper checks before someone could be licensed to be a waste disposal person, and also better fines if people get caught. I mean, and as I said, the most important thing is we report it. If we don't report it, councils or the police kind of think, well, it's a bit of an eyesore, but nobody's that bothered.
Yeah.
But if we all report it and say, actually, this is a big problem.
This is an interesting point that's just come in on email from Malcolm Woolstow. He says, we all hate fly tipping, but councils are making it increasingly difficult and costly to dispose of our waste. Council tips are closing, private tips are charging, false economy for councils not to offer a better service. He's got a point.
He has, I think, particularly around DIY. At the moment, the laws around what you're allowed to dispose of when you're doing your own house are based on builders' companies. So if it's your own house and you're disposing of stuff from your own house because you're doing it up, that should be free. And that will avoid then someone paying, and then that will avoid part of the problem.
OK. John, got to leave it there. Appreciate it. John Hayward-Cripps, he is the CEO of the Neighbourhood Watch Network. Fly tipping. Don't let it happen to you. Let us know. Tweet us at GB News. Thank you. Stay with us.
After that, we're going to go through the papers today. Liz Kershall and David Wooding will be doing that. See you in a moment.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Read all about it. Here we are with the papers. We've got the broadcaster Liz Kershaw and Sun on Sunday political editor David Wooding to go through those. Liz, you want to talk about this migrant scheme. This is no, wait a minute, I'm lying. Which one am I going to?
Yeah. Sun.
Rwanda.
Rwanda. It was the Sun, actually, page 17 in the Sun.
Yeah.
Talk about the migrant scheme. And they're claiming in this report that that scheme is actually working.
Yeah, well, obviously, I saw this morning, and I haven't been able to verify the figures, but they're presented here in the Sun this morning. Now, just going back, everybody was like up in arms about this scheme and saying it was cruel and immoral and all the rest of it. I always thought to myself, it's just a deterrent. Very few people are actually going to go to Rwanda, is my belief. But it's just to send a signal that if you pay thousands, which people do, they don't get in that boat because somebody's taking pity on them. If you pay thousands to get into a dangerous dinghy on the Calais shoreline, and they think you're going to end up in Britain and then you're going to be able to bring all your family over, which is why the families spend all the money they've got to send one son to establish them in the country, and then they can write the family. You're not going to invest all that money if you're going to end up in Central Africa, landlocked, in a camp. So it's a deterrent. And I've been there this week, and over the last, you remember on Sky, when we did the papers, over the last 7 years, I've witnessed this on a daily basis, these migrants arriving on the Kent coast. What struck me this week was it was dead. So instead of the Coast Guard helicopter going over like every hour, punctuating your day, you know, you're sitting there and all of a sudden, back to, and it's really deafening and loud. And all the activity, there's been one helicopter go past this week and not going out to sea as though it was a rescue mission, just flying past as though observing. So I thought, this is really quiet. Could it be anything to do with this new initiative? And anyway, so...
And you're putting your money on that it is.
Well, it says in the Sun, after 28,000 migrants arriving on our beaches in from Calais last year, the figures for this last week, from April the 20th to April the 26th, so that's a full week, 7 days, number arriving each day, 0. And I haven't checked it out, but I can believe it because there's been absolutely no sign of activity.
Right.
Energy crisis, David. Let's go to the Telegraph front page. And this was Rishi Sunak being skewered, if you want, for lack of a better word, by Mumsnet yesterday, hinting that he might follow through on what's been very much a proposal by the Labour Party, these windfall taxes. I can't see him doing this.
No, I mean, he's under a lot of pressure on energy prices. They're all rocketing. Everybody's suffering. Cost of living crisis is a huge problem for the government, more so than parties, as Liz said earlier. And in fact, the Cabinet last week were told to come up with some ideas to try and make people's wages stretch further. And on an internet conversation he had with Mumsnet, the Chancellor has said that he possibly could, nothing's off the table, and that he could do a windfall tax on the big companies. Now, this was something that was suggested by the Labour Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, who, as part of her bid to cut the cost of living. So it'd be interesting that after...
It's popular, I have to say, it's popular with viewers, I think, as a policy. People see these guys and they think they're lining their pockets and this would be a good time to do it. But my understanding is that this industry is already disproportionately taxed more than any other industry. And it would be really penalising business, which sounds like a very unconservative thing to do.
Yeah, I think the undertone of this message is that he wants them to invest more in longevity of energy supplies and invest more in making things a bit easier for everybody. And obviously there's the green strategies as well. But I think this is all about giving them a little prod to make sure that they do their little bit. He's also got more money than he expected because the fact, for instance, I saw petrol on the motorway this morning, unleaded petrol, £1.89 a litre. Yeah. And the Chancellor gets duty on that, and he also gets VAT, which grows exponentially with the price. But the other one he's talking about today is
interest rates will be going up to 2.5% by the end of the year, which means people's mortgages will cost more. When you pay your mortgage, who gets the money? The bank. And then they pay corporation tax on their increased profits. Well, why don't you do a tax raid on the banks? Because if you're paying £1,000 a month instead of £700 a month, somebody's creaming off that extra 300, aren't they?
Yeah. I suppose when you look at the whole national debt bill and the interest rate on that as well, it is just all scary.
It really is.
Has to be said. Right, 10-week wait threatens holiday chaos, Liz. This is the Telegraph front page here.
Yeah, and they're tying it in with people who work for the Passport Office, including the boss, still working from home. And the same thing applies to the DVLA and various other government bodies and quangos and everything. And people have obviously not renewed their passport during the last 2 years, thinking, oh, we can't go anywhere.
Why are they all working from home? Is this a COVID thing?
Well, it was, but now they're just...
But why are they still doing it?
Because they like it and they're digging their heels in. It's like the civil servants, but it's leading to inefficiencies in all sorts of government departments. And people have even gone as far as to pay £172 for a Super Express premium service and still miss the holiday because they haven't got the passports. So my son was invited to a wedding abroad and realised his passport had run out. And I said, oh, right, apply. Well, no chance. So I said, well, do what we've always done, go to the passport office, you know, Liverpool, Peterborough. You can't do that now. And
I'd like to know why. Is this COVID again?
It started with COVID, but they've got into a COVID comfort zone, and the whole thing's just gone to... So, you know, it's
changed the whole custom and practice of the civil service. It's now regarded as a bad thing to suggest that people should come into the office to work. And Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's the Minister for Efficiency in government, is having a lot of trouble with them. They're accusing him of bullying tactics to get them back in to do their job.
David, let's talk about the price of a pint, or I suppose it's a litre now. This is The Sun, page 27.
Yeah, losing bottle is the headline. It looks that the traditional pint of milk, which you get delivered by the milkman, is going to go away because, A, it's the rising cost of milk, B, it's the growth of supermarkets. You buy them in these big plastic 2 litre bottles.
Then you've got to carry that home. If I had the choice of a milk float coming to my door, I would take that every single time. Who wants to be carrying a litre and a half?
Well, a lot of people get deliveries, don't they?
We still have a milkman right through lockdown. Never let us down on a single
day.
Well,
I have a milk delivery man, and he also brings bread and cream.
Does he?
In
London?
Yeah, very old-fashioned,
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, and we have them in the little pint bottles, and you swill them out and put them back on
Oh, nice. You
doorstep.
get full cream. That just takes me back to my childhood, is getting top of the milk from my milk bottle.
The problem with those supermarket bottles...
Using bottles.
They're still using bottles. The problem with those supermarket bottles, apart from the planet, green, they're plastic.
Yeah, totally.
I know they're recyclable, but, you know, they're still plastic. You can't fit them in the fridge. They're too big.
Yeah.
They don't fit in that little door step.
Yeah.
So I like the bottle.
But it doesn't go off, and it's just convenient. I don't know.
OK. Sunak warns of more pain as mortgage bills rise. This is the Times, page 4.
Yeah, sorry, I alluded to that earlier. Yeah, so they use interest rates, don't they, to control the amount of money swirling around in the economy and in people's pockets to curb people's spending power in order to reduce demand, in order to put the dampener on inflation. But I can't see why this is justifiable at the moment, because the inflation is being caused by external factors like a war in Ukraine and Russia's grip on gas and oil supplies, and us closing down our coal pits, and Germany closing down their nuclear plants. And, you know, a lot of it is nothing to do with people just spending willy-nilly. So I can't see I wish somebody would explain the economics, because this seems to be just an outdated way of doing things. So they're actually going to pile on the pressure. You know, you've just had a hike in your national insurance. You can't afford to heat your house. You can't afford to fill your tank for petrol. Food prices have gone up 5.9% in last week and rising. And now your mortgage is going to go up. I mean, how much can people
Take. Yeah, not a lot.
We're talking a medical matter. We'll just finish on this, David, and Liz may have a view on this as well. Hormone replacement therapy, the shortage. We talked about this yesterday on the programme.
Well, every day. It's such a big story, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, well, it's been called the gold rush because there's such a shortage of this that, and there's about 30,000 women in the UK who are on hormone replacement therapy. And
what did you say, how many?
30,000. I'd have thought more.
It was much more than that.
Well, that was the figure that was.
But anyway, but I just would have thought that. But
it's used by the main issue is it's one particular type. It's the estrogel, which is used by 30,000 women in the UK. So I may have given you a misleading impression there. But it's used by a lot of women in the UK, and it rightly points out there that if you've had this to quell the symptoms, and then suddenly it stops, it's like having the rug pulled from underneath your feet. And so there will be a bit of a panic to buy some of this. There's even talk of black market trade in hormone replacement therapy. So this is a really serious problem for a lot of women in the UK.
Why has it got into this situation? You know, why is there a shortage?
Apparently, there used to be concerns about HRT and its links to breast cancer, and since that's been eradicated, the number of women using it has hugely increased, and the supply just hasn't been able to keep up. There was some suspicion that COVID could some way be playing into the sort of delivery of supply. Right. But, it seems to be this crisis, and Sajid Javid doesn't seem to have got a grip of it.
If they can vaccinate 60 million people 3 or 4 times in 2 years, surely they can produce some hormone replacement therapy medication. Yeah. I don't know, I'm not old enough yet.
Guys, thank you both very much indeed. The guys will be back in 40 minutes' time. It's 12 minutes now before 8 o'clock.
Yeah, let's bring you up to date on the latest headlines. MPs are calling for a radical overhaul of the NHS compensation system. It costs more than £2 billion a year, and the Health and Social Care Committee say the current system for compensating patients who suffer harm in England is not fit for purpose.
Let's be honest. The architecture that was designed to guarantee peace and prosperity has failed Ukraine. We also reject the false choice between Euro-Atlantic security and Indo-Pacific security. In the modern world, we need both. We need a global NATO. By that, I don't mean extending the membership to those from other regions. I mean that NATO must have a global outlook, ready to tackle global threats.
That was the Foreign Secretary on that keynote speech she gave last night in relation to the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Meanwhile, protesters in St Lucia say they want the Queen to apologise for slavery. It comes as the Earl and Countess of Wessex continue their royal tour of the Caribbean to mark the Queen's Platinum Jubilee.
OK, back pages of the newspapers. I'm here in the company with Paul Coit. We're both big football fans. And look, it's looking really good in the Champions League. Man City, taking an advantage there to Madrid. And Liverpool. No easy match last night, but a significant result. 2-0 win over Villarreal at Anfield.
Yeah, absolutely. People are having a go at Villarreal, actually, and saying, well, they didn't really have a go. They looked like they were setting up to just try, or whether they were setting up to fail, or whether they were just trying to just keep Liverpool back, which is completely understandable. But, it's a good result for Liverpool, but now they've got to go over there next week and finish off.
What do we know? I tell you what, we're going to talk to a man now who's had his hand on that European Cup, as it was then, 3 times. Yeah. And that is former Liverpool captain there to talk about all this. Phil Thompson. Phil, very good to see you.
Eamonn, nice to see you again. It's been a long time. Hi, Paul, you all right?
Yeah, good to see you. Is there any tension between the two of you?
No. He thinks I won't be magnanimous with Liverpool's great win.
That was never going to be the case. That's never going to be the case.
Well, look, I'm behaving myself. No, I'm pleased
I've
for
had
you,
a grin
Phil.
on my face all morning waiting to speak to Eamonn.
Phil, do you think it's nailed on now? Do you think it's Liverpool for the final?
Up, mate.
Liverpool for the final?
Well, listen, it was a strange game last night, wasn't it? We played very, very well. And I heard you say about Villarreal. They know what they are. They know they're not one of the big names in European football. They've had some great scalps, beaten sort of Juventus and Bayern Munich. by playing the way that they did. So there was no way that they were going to change. We had a great dress rehearsal against Everton at the weekend. So we knew what was going to come. We had so much possession in the game. It's just that the lads had to know to keep the back door shut. Big Ibu and Virgil, to keep the back door shut, to make sure they didn't get that transition to make counter-attacks. That worked perfectly. They didn't score a goal. Although the away goals don't count anymore, it's still going to be sort of a difficult one. Everybody will say, as I've said about Manchester City, our game was not as good as theirs, by the way, the night before, which was absolutely top class. But we got the right result, kept them at bay, didn't allow them back in the game. Do you know the strange thing, guys? It was a good result for us, and I heard you say that, but they were happy with the result as well. They sat there. They still didn't chase to score a goal. They were thinking 2-0's okay. And, of course, it was a very good result for us because you do think that we will score.
I mean, I agree. But the thing is, I was looking, Phil, at 81. And, of course, that day that you lifted the European Cup, although Champions League as it is now. And the links are, so it was Real Madrid that you played against, and it was in Paris. Yeah. And this could happen again, couldn't it? Did you think of that?
Well, did I think of it? It keeps me awake at night thinking about it.
The fact that it's the same place, it could be the same team again.
Well, it would be, and we owe Real Madrid one, don't we, from a couple of years ago in the Champions League final. But yet it could be, and it does get your sort of juices flowing that it could be Real Madrid. I do think, and looking at Manchester City, I do fancy them to get through. They had that many opportunities to increase their lead over Real Madrid that you can't see them scoring. Having said that, guys, I remember saying when we played Barcelona 3-0 down at the Nou Camp, and Barcelona were coming to Anfield, and every pundit said, Barcelona will score at any ground all over Europe. So they're going to get at least another goal, which they didn't. So we have to use that little bit to make sure that I do think we'll score, but it mightn't happen. So the boys have to still defend as well as they did last night.
How are you? You're not worried about this second leg, surely?
Well, I think you should always be worried about it. And I think that makes you play better. If you go out there and you're too complacent, I think there's always that chance of a slip-up. Listen, they have to get better. They can't produce another performance like that because that was probably one of the most comfortable semi-final results that we've seen in a long, long time. Okay. So they will have to perform.
Phil, who would you prefer to face in the final? I'm getting, well, you know what Man City are capable of. I mean, you know what they're...
Absolutely.
They're maybe better known to Liverpool.
Yeah, and I get that, Eamonn. I must say, Manchester City, I love the way they play the football. I'm a massive admirer of the football, the manager, everything that comes from them. If you're asking me who I would like to play, it's got to be Real Madrid because I think Manchester City are still one of the best teams in world football. So you take that out. Listen, I'm not decrying how good Real Madrid are. They're coming back. They're getting better. They're running away with their league. But you're asking me the question, it would have to be Real Madrid. And for those other sentimental reasons as well.
Phil, how heavy is that trophy? Because, again, I remember you lifting it. You know, you see the size of that thing.
Yeah, it is.
You know, and you've played in a huge game like that and you lifted it. I mean, does it take every last bit of strength to lift that thing and run around with it?
Would you care?
I don't think I would. Paul. Oh, my goodness. There's muscles that was like that. The adrenaline's flowing. I remember getting up there to this day. I've still got pictures around my house. And I went, and the guy's got this lovely European Cup, and Eamonn had done it in 77 and 78, and I was wanting it, being a fair scouser, to lift the European Cup. So the adrenaline's flowing, and the guy shakes my hand, the old guy, and then he starts to raise the European Cup. And if you see the pictures, you've got my hands going, give me the...
Less of that, just give us the cup.
I can't repeat the words on here, but I think the UEFA delegate got a bit of a shock.
Final question to you. The quadruple is still on. How good is this squad that Jurgen Klopp has built?
Do you know, there's this team that could be sort of immortality awaits these lads if they do it. It's not been done for a reason, because it is so hard. But I think if there's one team, one club, because of the connection with the fans and the players, you know the power of Anfield yourself, Eamonn. I think there is a great chance. So there's a chance. We're not in the box seat in the league because City still hold that 1-goal lead. 5 games to go, is there? And it's difficult. You can see City winning all theirs. You can see us winning ours. Do we lose it again by 1 point? But I do think we've still got a great chance. If anybody's going to maybe drop a couple of points and draw the game, I think it's maybe City may have one of those games where they just can't score. But ours, with having a better forward line, I think we've got it.
I think Phil's forgetting that they've still got to play Spurs at Anfield. I think you're forgetting about that, Phil, there for a second. We'll see how things go.
Sorry?
I think
but
you're
we have
also
Manchester
forgetting.
United and Everton to play at Anfield. And
So the quadruple hasn't been done.
Was it 9-0 on aggregates, the 2 games this season?
So the quadruple still hasn't been done. I'm not rising.
No,
there.
don't.
The treble, of course. Would you actually say that this Liverpool team would be nearing or as good? You're not seriously saying they would be as good as the 99 United team, are you?
Sorry, I just missed that part.
Thanks, Phil Thompson. Lovely talking to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
I'm dying to know what the pictures are behind you there. They're all cut out. Are they pictures of you?
No, it's me children, all aged too, and they're all a lot older than that now. I'm good Liverpool fans, Eamonn, so...
Well, that's all you can ask for your children, you know, that they support the same team as you do. That's absolutely right. God bless you, Phil.
Sue Johnson sends her regards, pal.
OK. Oh, well, she's happy too, yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye, Phil.
Cheers.
Sue Johnson sent me a lovely walking stick. You know, I have my legs off and said, you don't want to be going out in that crutch. You want to have a walking stick. She did send me a very lovely walking stick. Thanks, Paul.
That's a pleasure.
All good. Good. So Phil's in good form today.
Phil is in very good form, yeah. And you know what? And you didn't rise to it. I think you handled it very, very well.
I couldn't hear half of what he said.
Is that what it was?
Oh, he said.
OK,
anyway,
that's fine. He said nothing. He was very very complimentary about United.
We're back after the break. See you top of the hour.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Durham police to review whether Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer broke lockdown rules.
Good morning. It's 1 minute past 8 on Thursday, the 28th of April. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn Holmes and me, Isabel Webster.
Leading the news this morning, Durham police have opened the door to a renewed probe into claims that Sir Keir Starmer broke lockdown rules in April last year. The Culture Secretary, Nadine Dorries, called for the Labour leader to be subjected to the same standards as the Prime Minister.
York councillors from all parties have voted unanimously to remove Prince Andrew's freedom of the city. The vote was accompanied by calls for the Queen to strip the Prince of his Duke of York title.
The Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, has warned that the war in Ukraine could last up to a decade. In a major foreign policy address, she called President Putin a desperate rogue operator and warned China they better play by the rules.
The Prime Minister is threatening the Passport Office with privatisation as the backlog grows to 500,000, with travellers warned of a 10-week wait. Our Home Affairs editor, Mark White, will have all the details for us this hour.
You can join in, of course. We are the People's News channel. If it matters to you, it matters to us. You can tweet at GB News. You can email gbviews at gbnews.uk if you understood all of that. But most importantly of all, this is the last day you can actually vote for us to register opinion, to keep food in the mouths of our children, to help us pay our mortgages, to maybe keep a car on the road.
And let me tell you, our competition have also been appealing for votes, so we need to get you to represent for us, and let's sock them in the eye with a good
the thing about us
nomination.
is we're a big kept secret. So if you watch us or listen to us, go and tell your friends, go to your neighbours, knock the door.
Spread the word.
Are you watching?
They will be, of course.
Here. You know,
Viewing figures
so
are going
do that. But the thing is, I mean, you look at us, you look at our humble little programme, what we do, what we try to do every morning.
People have no idea how humble.
No idea. And do you actually look and say, they are not better than all that other guff that's on in the morning? No, 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 no. This is the People's News channel, and it will increasingly become the People's News channel. And we've only been here 3 months doing what we do. So get us on that list for the Trick Awards, trick.org.uk. Vote early, vote often to show your support.
Thank you. OK, our top story at 8 o'clock. Police are considering a full probe into claims that Sir Keir Starmer broke lockdown rules over drinks with Labour officials. OK, this will come from Durham Police. They've said it will consider a request from a Conservative MP, Richard Holden, to review that decision that cleared the Labour leader. The event took place in April last year with the Labour MP for the City of Durham, Mary Foy. Party officials also held a quiz and social event on the same evening that Sir Keir was there. However, Labour have strongly denied that the leader took part in that quiz. The Culture Secretary, Nadine Dorries, called for Sir Keir to be subjected to the same standards as the Prime Minister. Well, let's talk to our political correspondent, Tom Harwood, who joins us in the studio. Look, we spoke to Jonathan Ashworth about half an hour ago, and he said it's completely different circumstances. It's not comparing like with like by comparing Boris Johnson and Cakegate. But obviously, the police considered that some new evidence has come to light and it's worth reviewing. And as the Culture Secretary says, we're only asking for the same standards to be upheld.
Well, I think that's the strongest argument that many people in this whole situation have. Now, the Labour Party will often say that this isn't comparable to the number of events that are alleged to have taken place across the civil service, across politics, across Whitehall, across Downing Street. But really, when we're looking at an individual basis of an individual case versus an individual case, that comparison starts to fall away, or at least that distinction starts to fall away. Because, of course, the Prime Minister has been fined in isolation for one event. Now, we can't say that that has been an event that has taken into account the others because we're expecting potentially more fines down the line. So for this particular event, the bar seems to have been really low for particularly the Chancellor, actually, who is not someone who expected to get a fine himself. Not many people expected him to get a fine. If that's the level of the bar, then it seems like it's only reasonable, it's only consistent that that same bar is applied to other senior politicians. And let's not forget, this is a politician who voted for those very strict
and has
COVID
done a lot of
as well.
talk. He's voted for them. He's talked a lot of it as well. So, you know, he's got to face the consequence, I suppose. But all of this, Tom, comes down to the equivalent in football of VAR. You're either onside or you're offside. There's no in between.
Well, I think that used to be the case, potentially. But what we've seen now is that there's such a grey area in terms of what some people may describe a work event, in terms of what some people may describe as reasonably necessary for work purposes as the legislation sets out. To some extent, that's a grey area, and we know that the Met Police, for example, when it comes to Partygate, have been poring over this stuff for months, trying to decide what fits into the work category and what fits into the social category, because ultimately there's no distinction between these people who, in some senses, were allowed to be in the same room together, but then when there's a different sense of conversation or indeed food or drink, does that turn into something less?
I'll tell you what fits into the work category and what fits into the social category, and that is quite clearly pornography. There can be no circumstances under which it is acceptable for pornography to be watched in a work setting, and that is the allegation that's being laid at the door at a Conservative MP. We don't know the name, but two female Conservative, Conservative MPs have independently corroborated and had these two incidents of this happening. We don't know the name of the individual, but truly shocking in nature, this allegation.
Especially if it happened within the chamber.
In the Commons.
If it did.
It's extraordinary. So every Prime Minister's questions, I sit up on the press gallery in the House of Commons chamber. I'm sitting above the opposition benches. There are many people who sit above the government benches as well. You can see MPs on their phones, some of them, too many of them, on their phones during important parliamentary business. But you can see what they're doing. It's the most extraordinary, brazen attitude if this
because they want to see what you're tweeting, Tom.
Well, I mean, it's extraordinary the number of front benchers who sit around on WhatsApp for most of parliamentary business. But no, if someone was watching pornography in the chamber, that's someone who wants to be seen, and that's a different level of perversion to some extent.
Yeah.
So really, this is a serious allegation. It was referred to the Conservative Chief Whip. The Conservative Chief Whip has now referred it to the parliamentary authorities. So really, in terms of next steps, what has to happen is those two female Conservative MPs need to refer it themselves and give evidence to parliamentary authorities, and then it undergoes that very formal investigation process, which may take some time.
I just think, Tom, if this was you or I in the workplace here and it was either of us doing this or both of us doing, I mean, Isabel, from your point of view, you would be abhorred, you might feel threatened, you would feel... Well, what would you feel about this? And would you expect, in terms of, a penalty against us? I mean, could you see... losing your job over
I mean,
like
look, we've all seen colleagues within our industry being sacked for much lesser offences, haven't we? That's disgusting and it's shocking and it's disrespectful to me, it's disrespectful to your own profession, and it would be unacceptable, absolutely. And that's, I'm sure, how people are feeling this morning. But this referral is not an isolated case, and it is in terms of porn, but there's 56 MPs under investigation at the moment, 3 of whom are in the Cabinet, and there have to be questions about what is going on. The same week that there's all this misogyny allegations being levelled in relation to Angela Rayner, Westminster needs a clean-up, doesn't it?
Well, this is the perennial question with what is a very unique place of work. It's a place where people often stay voting until the early hours of the morning. There are several bars subsidised by the taxpayer that exist within the parliamentary estate.
Television studios, when I started out 4 years ago, every TV station...
4 years ago?
40 years ago.
Yeah, I thought you said when I started out 4 years ago.
40 years ago, right? 42 to be
42.
precise. There were bars everywhere, at the BBC, at ITV, wherever. It was just part of the culture. Now there's none. TV is dry, right? It's completely dry. So if you go on to the 80s, I mean, there were just functioning alcoholics in newsrooms.
And smokers, chain smokers,
and whatever it is. So that culture change happened at TV.
I have to say, there used to be a bar up in the press gallery in the House of Commons. That one's gone. There's another bar that has now been turned into a daycare centre in the House of Commons. There aren't as many bars as there were in the years past, but there are still certainly multiple bars. There's the Lord's Bar, there's the Woolsack Bar, there's the Strangers Bar. There are many different bars that people can and do go to. And
if MPs can't be trusted to control how much they drink, then, there's a...
I do think that there's a worry in this conversation that, to some extent, saying, oh, there's a bar there, therefore this happens. That sort of excuses the behaviour in a sense. And I think that would be a wrong path to go down, to say that, oh, if someone has alcohol, of course they're going to behave in a beastly way. I don't think that that's always the case, because ultimately there are lots of people who can have alcohol and can behave like a normal, respectable, decent human being. So to some extent, I think we probably shouldn't absolve people who are accused of doing things simply for the fact of there being alcohol there. But there is a question over the culture and over how much. I mean, there are the usual suspects, for example, people who are seen to be drinking every single night in the House of Commons. That, I think, is a different question to someone who might have a glass of wine at a parliamentary reception. So there's a very different level of order here. But yes, certainly some big questions to be asked. And of course, the Prime Minister at the dispatch box of the House of Commons yesterday said that if someone was found to have been watching porn in the House of Commons, that would be a breach of the ministerial code. That would be a resigning offence.
Right, OK. Tom, thanks for filling us in with all of those details. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So, York, have you ever been to York?
I haven't, for my shame.
I haven't either.
Yeah,
I'd
we
like
need to sort
go.
that out. Yeah.
And does it matter to you people, because this, if you're from Yorkshire or you're from York exactly, the story that we're about to report, does this matter to you? Because councillors there have voted, and they voted unanimously, to strip Prince Andrew of the freedom of the city.
Yeah, this all comes, of course, in the wake of his out-of-court settlement with Virginia Giuffre. And many are now calling for the Prince to be stripped of his royal title, the Duke of York. Well, our reporter Anna Riley went to the meeting in York where that vote took place.
On Wednesday evening, City of York councillors voted to strip the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, of his Freedom of the City honour given to him in 1987. The honorary freedom is bestowed by the city to recognise notable service by local residents, to distinguish people and to royalty. But after the sexual assault case brought against Prince Andrew by Virginia Giuffre, which was settled out of court, councillors decided it would no longer be appropriate for him to hold the honour. Councillor Darryl Smalley, City of York Council Executive Member for Culture, Leisure and Communities, told GB News this vote took place to protect the city's reputation.
So I proposed the motion to remove the honorary freedom today, just to distance York from Prince Andrew. I think we've had many months now of our city being linked with him as those allegations came out, as the court case rumbled on, and the subsequent reaction to it. And we're only acting in a similar way to the Queen. The Queen recognised that he was doing reputational damage to those military patronages and other honours and positions that he held, and so it's only right that as a City Council we act as well. We're doing great work in trying to end violence against women and girls and tackle misogynistic hate crime. It feels at odds that we're doing all that work and then at the same time having someone, an ambassador of our city, with serious allegations against his name, and so that's why we felt the need to act in the way we have.
Prince Andrew relinquished his honorary military titles and his HRH style in January, following the sexual assault claims that were brought against him. Now, after removing his Honour of the City title, councillors here in York say the next logical step is for Buckingham Palace and for the government to remove Prince Andrew's Duke of York title in order to sever all links that the Prince has with the city. Anna Riley, GB News, York.
Thanks, Anna. We now go to royal commentator Jenny Bond on all of this. She's been, reporting on the royals for many, many years there. Does it matter, Jenny? Good morning, lovely to see you. Does it matter that he's been stripped of this title? Obviously, it's very embarrassing.
Yes, I mean, that's it. It's another humiliation for him. He is, now known really as the disgraced Duke. It just proves, I think, Eamonn, that he is a toxic brand now. And for all the suggestions that he might have a road back to some kind of public role, the suggestions are that this is what he would like. I think the door is absolutely closed on that. People don't want to be associated with him. His charities, his patronages, and now the City of York do not want to be associated in any way. They say it's a stain on their city. He is tainted, and I think this absolutely precludes any way back.
OK, Jenny, but, those who are now saying, is his royal title next? That's a step too far, isn't it? Because that would come down to Parliament and it would come down to Her Majesty as well.
Yes, there would have to be an Act of Parliament, have to go through both houses, and the Queen would have to give her assent. And this is her son. She is the Queen. She is also a mother, and a mother who very much loves all her children. People say that maybe Andrew is the favourite. I don't know if that's true. But she has shown her public support for him by having him walk her into Westminster Abbey for the memorial service of the Duke of Edinburgh. Mothers stand by their children, don't they? So I doubt if it will go that far, but certainly the calls are growing. There are multiple petitions in York for him to be stripped of that dukedom, which will be extremely rare. As far as I can make out, the only time this has happened, or certainly the last time, was 1917, when two dukes their dukedoms were taken away because they had fought on the other side with the Germans in the war. So it would be, an extraordinary thing if that happened, but those calls are there. He does have other titles, of course. I mean, he is also the Earl of Inverness and the Baron, and now, Eamonn, you might have to help me, of Killyleagh in Northern Ireland.
Perfect, yeah, well done, yeah. Killyleagh. Yeah. But Jenny, let me ask you this. You said to me, you just said that mothers stand by their sons, but would brothers necessarily stand by their brother?
No, I don't think so. I think that if this got to Parliament, I don't think in any way Charles would stand up for his brother and say, no, you mustn't take the dukedom away. I mean, there's not a huge bond between Charles and Andrew, I don't think, and the other siblings. I mean, I'm sure they love him, as any family loves siblings, but I don't think that they will, in any public way, stand by him for him to come back into public life. And if there is a call for his dukedom to be taken away, well, so be it. But I think it's unlikely, but I think these calls are going to go on. I don't think they're going to go away. I mean, York have been so forthright in what they've said about it. They've said that he simply does not reflect York's values, that having him associated with a proud and fair city is just untenable. They don't want him.
They don't want him, and yet he's been very forthright, I think. You can assume that he's spending this time when he's sort of in splendid isolation, going for tea with his mother in her ear, sorting out, walking, as you said, down the aisle at his father's memorial. Could he be doing the same? Perhaps if he's not allowed at Trooping the Colour, might he appear, for example, at the Epsom Derby during the Platinum Jubilee? I mean, do you think he might be trying to do that?
Well, yes, I think the Queen invites him, and she may well do. She does need someone to help her, to support her, not only morally, but physically now, as we've seen. And if she needs an arm to lean on, she may well ask Prince Andrew to go to certain occasions. I don't think, as you were suggesting, we're going to see him on the balcony. Jubilee balcony scenes are different to normal birthday balconies, when the Queen does have her extended family there. But as we saw at the Diamond Jubilee, they had just 5 or 6 members on there, the key members of the family, the core of the family. So I think it would be extraordinary if he were to appear at this Jubilee on the balcony.
Gosh, can you imagine the scene, Jenny? I mean, whatever the reasons and whatever the justification, I mean, someone has to turn around to him and say, sorry, not you, Andrew. You can't come out today.
Won't like it.
Pretty embarrassing.
Yeah, yes, it is embarrassing. I say, luckily there is the precedent of the Diamond Jubilee when it is just the immediate heirs who've gone onto the balcony. But that is the kind of life he lives now, and I think he is a distraction. That's a problem. If the Queen does want to invite him, rather as we saw at the memorial service, he is now a distraction away from what should be the Queen's big year and her big celebrations. And with the memorial service, it should have been just about the Duke and the Queen mourning her husband. But in fact, all the headlines pretty much were about Andrew.
Bond, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely to talk to you, and thanks for your perspective.
Yeah, and speaking of perspectives, lots of them this morning coming in from viewers. David saying he should lose all of his privileges. He's a laughingstock. Linda saying she thinks York Council is being petty. And Diane saying, as a Yorkshire person, I totally agree with York City Council on this. Let us know your thoughts this morning.
21 minutes past 8. Let's bring you up to date with the news. A 28-year-old man has been charged with murdering 4 family members at a house in Bermondsey, South East London on Monday. This is breaking for us this morning. Joshua Jacks accused of stabbing 1 man and 3 women before being tasered and arrested by police. He's now due to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court.
A minister at the Home Office has said that the Tory MP who allegedly watched pornography in the House of Commons should be expelled from the party if the claims are correct. Rachel McLean, the minister responsible for safeguarding women, called the behaviour shocking and unacceptable.
A man's been charged with the murder of missing mother of two, Katie Kenyon. It's believed she travelled in a Ford Transit van from Burnley towards Bolton by Bowland last Friday morning, and she hasn't been seen since. Lancashire Police say 50-year-old Andrew Burfield will appear at Blackburn Magistrates Court later today. There's a backlog of 500,000 British passports with COVID delays and recruitment crisis being blamed for all of this.
Yeah, and as Downing Street Chief of Staff Steve Barclay meets the Passport Office leadership over the next few days, our reporter Rosie Wright is at the Passport Office for us this morning, getting people's reactions. Very good morning to you. Of course, this is having a huge impact on people who are having to wait weeks and weeks for their passports. What are they saying to you this morning?
Yeah, there's a lot of disgruntled people at the Passport Office this morning. Currently, if you pay £75.50 for an adult passport, the Passport Office are telling you you could be waiting up to 10 weeks to get your passport back. And in some cases, it's taking much longer. Now, they say they are currently experiencing unprecedented demand, and that's come from two real sources. The first is that, of course, for the majority of the last 2 years, we weren't even allowed to go on holiday, so people didn't think about renewing their passport. And the second problem is that the expiry date now has new significance. Before we left the European Union, you could go on holiday, particularly to Europe, the Schengen area, right up until your passport expired. That is no longer the case. Someone who's been caught out by that is Adam, who's come to the Passport Office this morning trying to get an appointment like several other people. Just to explain, you're supposed to be going on your first post-COVID holiday to Portugal, but it's going a little bit wrong. It looks in jeopardy right now.
Yeah, we're supposed to be going to Portugal in 2.5 weeks' time. Last Sunday, we read a news article saying that people have been caught by this new Brexit rule, and it applies to us as well. My wife's passport is from April 2012. It doesn't expire until next January. We've filled in all the forms on British Airways. We've said the expiry dates. That's all been fine. And now we read that we may not be allowed into Portugal because her passport is more than 10 years old. We are desperately, desperately trying to get a new passport for her as a matter of urgency.
So you've got some options. Normally on the website, you can apply to have your passport fast-tracked. You've tried to do that. What's happening?
So, yeah, Fast Track is a 1-week service. There's Online Premium, which is a same-day service. We cannot get an appointment on either for love or money. The other day, one appointment came up in Glasgow at 9 o'clock in the morning. My wife genuinely thought about driving through the night to get to Glasgow for that 9 o'clock appointment. It went straight away. The earliest appointments we can get on either service are 2.5 weeks' time. That's too late for us. So at the moment, our next option we think is to speak to BA and try and convince them to change our holiday, because otherwise we're just going to have to lose it.
Adam, thank you very much for explaining the situation that you're in. Not alone, actually. As I walked through the queue this morning, there was one father who said to me, the cost of our holiday this half-term has just gone up by over £200 because they've got to fast-track their children's passports. But, of course, in Adam's case, right now he can't actually get an appointment to get the fast-track one in the first place. Lots of people experiencing that. I have spoken to the Passport Office, and they've said the cheapest, the easiest way to do it is apply online, but you're going to have to wait 10 weeks. That takes us up now to the first week of June, encroaching on school summer holidays. This is a problem that the government want to get sorted, and fast.
OK, Rosie, thank you very much. Well, let's get more updates on this from our Home and Security editor, Mark White. He joins us in the studio. And Mark, look, this problem, we've been talking about it for a while now, but it's getting silly. As Rosie was saying, it's getting towards the summer now for this backlog. Why can't they seem to get a grip of this?
Well, the Passport Agency say that they have been making preparations for this. The problem is they say that there were millions of people whose passports expired during COVID, 5 million in fact, who didn't renew it at that period. And only now, as travel is opening up again, are they deciding to get those passports renewed. So if I give you an example, in any given year, 7 million people apply for renewed passports. This year, they're expecting, because of that COVID backlog, that to be about 9.5 million people. Normally, the process would be about 3 weeks to get your passport, if you send it off, the documents off, to get your passport back. They're now warning up to about 10 weeks. They say that the majority of people who are applying get them within 10 weeks. And in some cases, if you go to a photo booth and get a digital photo taken where you get a code, then you apply online, they are hopeful that you would still be able to get your passport within about 4 weeks.
Does it help that so many people connected to the passport office, including the boss, are working from home?
I don't think that's an issue, to be honest. They're all connected up with computer systems and the like. In fact, you know, this is so typical of what you get from politicians, special advisors who are briefing out to the media about the Prime Minister looking to privatise the passport agency. Well, actually, a lot of the problems they're encountering at the moment are due to a private company that's working co-opted out for the passport agency on all the telecommunications. So the phone systems that you're calling, you can't get through for love nor money. So lots of people are turning up at the passport office. Also the courier service that's sending a lot of these documents out, they're running into problems as well. That's a private company. So it's nonsense.
OK. But it is a mess. All of it is
undoubtedly
a mess.
is.
Yeah. I'm actually quite frightened about sending a passport. You know, would it come back? You know, if there's a 10-week delay. People sort of...
I'm going to go and check all of ours today, I think.
That's
Make sure
a
we're
good
up to
point. Check your
speed.
passport, check your expiry date.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Coming up, we are talking to Nicky Clark. Nicky Clark is the celebrity hairstylist. He is the man. He knew them all. He cut the hair of...
An illustrious hairdresser with a lustrous look.
He has. And you know, he did them all. Big stars. He's going to tell you all about that. But the thing is, he's had to close his salon. His salon, an exclusive place in Mayfair, creme de la creme, telling you all about it, talking to him after this short break.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Now, up next, Nicky Clark is one of the all-time go-to hair gurus with celebrity clients like David Bowie and royal regulars like Princess Diana.
He did me once.
Yeah?
He didn't do me yesterday, as you can see from
That was the Turkish barber.
The Turkish barber, who only takes cash, incidentally. Yeah, but anyway, 30 years. Here's the big story. This is why we got Nicky in today. We talk about, you know, the cost of living crisis and how things have changed after the pandemic. 30 years after opening his salon, the doors are closing. And can you tell us why? Because basically this is a story, my friend. It's not that you're retiring. No. It's not that you won't have clients still and all that sort of thing. But why would you have to close the doors of an amazing salon in Mayfair?
I think the thing is that when we moved from that salon that you're talking about after 21 years, we moved just around the corner to another amazing space. But the thing is that the pandemic has changed, not just in terms of the clients coming in and not wanting to be in Mayfair, etc., but also I think, attitudes of the workers. You've got so many people really that are wanting to do less days and, being paid probably the same amount of money. But I think mostly it was the fact that we set a standard that was a very high level. And, I think we did something very, very new. You remember it from then. And we weren't really able to continue that at that level. And I suppose I just don't want to be, doing something that is not at that level. We have a salon in Birmingham, that does very, very well. I have a brand, in terms of Nicky Clark Electric and all of the wet products, etc. And I don't want that to be, to be remembered in terms of things that were just not quite 5-star.
Yeah.
So, we took the decision, Leslie and I, my partner, business partner, just said, this is not what we were and what we are going to be. And we've got other things that we want to do as well. I mean, the only strange thing, of course, is that, of course, I'm still working. I mean, I've got hundreds and hundreds of wonderful messages, from clients, but also from members of staff that have just said that was just the best time of their lives.
Well, you see, I have a hairdresser who is pregnant at the moment. She told me the news. I was like, congratulations. And then straight away I felt panic.
Yeah.
I was like, what am I going to do? You must have that with your celebrity clients. I mean, what are they going to do without you?
Well, that's very nice of saying. Actually, that has definitely come through because the amount of support that has been, my God, you're not retiring. And of course, I'm not. I'm actually going to be at my brother's salon, which I have to say with a mixture of pride and envy. Is undoubtedly the most luxurious salon in
Which
London.
salon's that now?
This is my brother. It goes under Michael Van Clark. I mean, and actually, funny enough, we have worked together many times before. And so, I'm still very much, today I'm fully booked. When we leave.
He is fully booked. And we do have to tell you folks watching at home, this is another world, right? So I went to this guy's salon to have, say, a wet shave, which is a lovely experience. It was like 3,000 quid.
No, it was not.
It seemed like the only way that I could have afforded to get into his salon was that Ruth and I were filming this programme about how the other half lives, and you were on programme 1, the first one. And I have to say, my friend, you used the term 5-star service. That is the difference. Whatever it was special.
Yes.
And you could tell, so whether it was the wet shave or whatever way, you came out feeling special, and you like to think, I suppose, for the money you spent top end, it was very
And of course, everybody expects that the actual hairdressing part is going to be top notch.
Yeah.
But people go for other reasons as well. It is that that whole experience.
You get teas, coffees, you get nice drinks.
Yeah, but you
But they
get
were
all
nice
the
people
secrets.
as well.
Nice people.
Yeah.
Nicky, all the secrets people must have told you over the years. I mean, you could have written, the next day's newspapers.
I used to say that. I used to say that I could write tomorrow's front page. But I think partly the reason that I could say that was because I was entrusted with an awful lot of information that actually I'm surprised that they did at that point. I mean, I'm not that kind of person, but they didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, of course, there was just wonderful, wonderful stories. And, you're talking sort of A-lister.
Give us an example.
Oh, I don't know. But, it's just far too many stories.
Yeah.
Of course, we were blessed in terms of, the luck as well. But, having... a member of the royal family opened the salon. We had all of these celebrities. We had, I remember, we had the VIP room. I actually had a secret entrance, which actually the only time the only person that ever used it, I think, I was doing Christian Bale for Batman, doing the Bruce Wayne thing, and I think he was still in kind of machinist mode, coming in. So, from that point of view, but just wonderful stories.
Were you responsible for Princess Diana's famous hairdo? And
No, not at all. That was with another wonderful hairdresser called Sam McKnight. But it was a time when she was going to Pavarotti in the park. So it was one of those occasions where I knew her anyway because my son and her son and William went to the same school for a week. So we were on sort of nodding terms and she would come to the
That tells you how well you were doing, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know. But she was lovely. It became famous because she got drowned at that particular. So there's all these pictures of her and Pavarotti with wet hair
I saw a picture in the paper yesterday of Sarah Ferguson. That you're with, and I thought it was the most beautiful hairstyle. It was so soft and it was so unlike anything else I'd ever
See,
seen.
he has such a gentle side to you.
He's very interested in all these sorts of things.
But I think from
Both
your
of
point
you.
of view, if you could take someone like Sarah or Isabel was talking how important her hairdresser is to her, you are artistic. This is art. This is not just chopping, making things shorter or whatever it is. You create. Do you see yourself as an artist?
I mean, I see myself as somebody who does a craft rather than. I mean, it's not for me to say that, but in terms of Sarah, it was interesting because I'd started doing it way before she had Beatrice, and that particular time, people's hair kind of, postpartum, it all falls out and things. And actually, we were doing a shoot, and it was halfway through the shoot with Terry O'Neill, and it just, she just said, you know what, it's not great, is it? It's all kind of. We just did it there and then. It was just sensational, actually. But
people assume that because you had this A-list client list, that they were all wonderful to spend time with. I bet you had some divas as well, and a few expected.
Do you know what? I mean, I could probably say that I probably did most of all the divas. I mean, if you look at the so-called, the Margaret Thatchers, the Diana Rosses, the Naomi Campbells, but I have to say they were all fabulous with me.
Yeah.
They were all just lovely. I mean, I can't say. I mean, it's really when you're doing your boyhood heroes. I remember having, doing David Bowie and Brian Ferry and all. And actually, Bowie is just, I'm a huge Bowie fan. I mean, I used to camp outside his house when I was 13. And of course, you're trying to not let on that you're a fan. Yeah. And he was one of those people that just was always forward thinking. Mm-hmm. So there was a point where I'm trying to sort of usher him out of the salon. He just wants to talk about art, and I'm thinking, I'm going to get found out any minute here.
So bringing in some of that forward thinking, it's not that there's anything wrong with Isabel's hair. In the presence of
I am seeing my hairdresser straight after the show. I'm very much in need of some roots. I can't believe you've drawn attention
What
to
suggestions would you bring? I mean, would you cover...
I'd suggest that you stop suggesting
There you go.
But, for instance, would you cover the grey, or would you let it naturally come through?
It doesn't have any
Bit shorter. I'm going to go a bit shorter.
Listen, the thing is, there's always lots of options. I mean,
she's a lot to play with, though, hasn't she?
Not really. It's
she looks lovely.
Thank
Extensions.
you.
I didn't say she looks. I'm just saying, what would you do, Maestro? What would you do? What way would you...
Extensions for this guy?
You're making it suggest that actually there's something wrong, and there's actually nothing wrong. But of course, there is always options. There's always options.
Evolution. I'm just saying, I think lovely. I mean, Isabel looks great, but maybe to modernise her.
Do you know what? I mean, it is interesting you say that. I mean, and I'm not going to hone in there, but actually, one of the things that is probably, and we talk about the celebrities and all of it, and of course it's lovely, and I mean, I'm a fan all the time. So, but the greatest thing is actually when I do new clients. People always think, you're going to close your books. But actually, when you can just see a different option, and that's the thing that really, I love, when somebody, you can see that thing that says, wow, actually, I never thought...
I was just going to finish on the point to say, you've been really lucky, we're talking about how lucky you are in your career, that you, as a famous hairdresser, have managed to have lustrous locks yourself, because not all men are so lucky, but you're a walking advert for your salon.
Check the wig still there.
Nice.
No, listen, I mean, it's, a mixture of good genes. And,
imagine if you'd gone bald, it might not be the same story.
I don't think it would have made that much difference.
No? Okay.
Really? I don't know.
Who knows?
No, I'm glad.
Look, I need you to have a little private consultation during the break.
Don't you like my hair?
No, I'm just saying, take the chance.
You said it needs modernising.
I didn't say. I said maybe it's a good idea.
I'm not talking to you anymore.
But he's got. I mean, I'm
not talking to you.
Genius. It won't even cost you anything. You'll get advice for free.
No,
bring it to your girl on the.
You're insulting everyone now. Let's take a break. We'll be back in a sec.
They'll have their consultation. We'll bring the newspapers right after the short break. Don't go away. No.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Bring in your news. It looks like this with the time at 8:42. A 28-year-old man has been charged with murdering 4 family members at a house in Bermondsey in South East London on Monday. His name is Joshua Jacks. He's accused of stabbing 1 man and 3 women before being tasered and arrested by police. He is due to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court.
A minister at the Home Office has said that the Tory MP who allegedly watched pornography in the House of Commons should be expelled from the party if the claims are correct. Rachel Maclean, the minister responsible for safeguarding women, called the behaviour shocking and unacceptable.
Foreign Secretary says the war in Ukraine must act as a catalyst for the West to overhaul its approach to international security. Liz Truss says the UK and its allies need to stand up to aggressors around the world who try to exploit their economic power. Welcome back again for your delectation, Liz Kershaw and David Wooding, who are going through the papers for us this morning. And very good and enjoyable it has been so far. And a new development, we go to front page of the Daily Mail, and they're quite strong on this one, Liz. It's about a police review into Keir Starmer and whether he broke lockdown rules or not.
Yeah, well, ahead of being with you last week, I put out a tweet, a poll, non-scientific, asking what's most offensive, cake and Prosecco, beer and pizza, about Prosecco and beer. Anyway, beer and pizza won because people are obviously getting irritated that it was being treated differently to cake and Prosecco, i.e. the Met Police are investigating number 10 and I'd specifically fined Boris for having a birthday cake and some fizz, whilst Keir Starmer was stirring it up, was saying, well, mine was just, you know, food and refreshments while we were having a meeting.
David, with your political hat on here, will he rue the day that he made such an issue of this towards Boris Johnson?
Well, Keir Starmer has accused the Prime Minister of invoking one law for the rest of us and behaving differently himself. And having raised that, he's now open to the same question himself, having criticised the Prime Minister. Do the laws apply to him in the same way? And what's happened here is that Richard Holden, one of the Durham MPs, Conservative MP, has written to Durham Constabulary saying, look, there's the pictures, the evidence, you've dismissed this as not breaking the rules, yet Scotland Yard are interpreting the rules differently when it comes to the Prime Minister. So either Scotland Yard have got it wrong and shouldn't be prosecuting or putting a big penalty on the Prime Minister, or you should be slapping one on Keir Starmer. And it's a powerful.
But am I right in saying they shouldn't be, from your point of view, they shouldn't be bothering, wasting their time with either of them? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think too much has been made of it. But if you are going to investigate one, you should have a level playing field and look at both. And I'd just like to make a point from a nutrition aspect. So I think Starmer's defence justification was, oh, well, we were having food and sustenance, you know, pizza, and they were having cake. So I always look at the VAT on food products, and you can do this on your own supermarket bill, and like there'll be an A or a B next to each item, and if it's A, it's VAT free, and if it's B, it's VAT imposed, and from that you can tell what our government actually classes as food and nutrition.
You are clever, Liz.
So, for instance, cake is VAT neutral, it's
Right.
classed as food, and biscuits have got VAT on them because they're classed as non-nutritional
Non-essential.
value, non-essential. And so, just go through it. It's amazing. Like, orange juice has got VAT on it, but milkshakes have not.
My word.
But
you know,
pizza
it's
and
very
cake, both in the same bracket, so they're not going to get out of jail on that.
Pizza and cake are both considered by the government to be food.
And what are Jaffa cakes then? Are they biscuits?
Ooh,
Well,
good
that's,
question.
that I don't know that one because there's a big debate. I'll find out. But you can go around a supermarket and you can go down an aisle, and everything in that aisle will have VAT on it. And you can go down the next aisle and you'll be complete VAT-free shopping. And if you stick to the non-VAT items, you'll also
Just tell
have
me,
a more
how do you
nutritious.
tell this again? You lift the packet up and...
On your check bill from till receipt.
Oh, so you have to buy it first?
Yeah, you have to learn as you go along. So you'll get your bill and you'll be like, lamb chops, A.
Which means no VAT.
No VAT. And then it'll be something else.
Maltesers.
Yeah, B.
B.
Wine, B. Milk, A. So,
Never knew that.
There you
Never
go.
knew that.
There
Hey,
you
sit
go.
with me, kid, Eamonn.
Gosh, yeah.
David, let's talk about the energy crisis. This is the front of The Guardian this morning. Fears of an energy crisis as Russia cuts the gas supply to Bulgaria and to Poland.
Yes, President Putin of Russia has accused Poland and Bulgaria of being unhelpful by not paying for their gas bills to Gazprom, the Russian gas supplier, in rubles, which he wants, of course, because the currency is plundered as a result of the sanctions. That has led to prices rocketing in Europe by 20%. Now, luckily, here in the UK, we don't use very much Russian gas. It's infinitesimally small.
Well, we've imported
virtually.
gas and oil, what, £200 million since the start of the year.
But what it does is it has a knock-on effect on gas prices, and of course it is shoving it all up. So there is a big standoff there, and of course in Poland and Bulgaria they are worried about because they use quite a lot of Russian gas, 40-50% in some cases, and I think this is all a shot across the bows of the other EU nations. To pay in rubles because the same might happen.
But he's cutting off his nose to spite his face, isn't he? Because if he doesn't get his payments, he doesn't get his payments. And, you know, Ursula von der Leyen coming out saying we must not accede to Russian demands, urging people to hold firm in the face of that pressure from him. So, you know, he might stand to lose from all of this.
It's a bit of a circular firing squad, if I'm honest, because they need the gas supplies in those countries and they rely on it too much.
Yeah. We go to the Telegraph. This is page 4, Elizabeth, and care homes and assurances and what happened during the pandemic and people being ferried out of hospitals and dumped in care homes. The conclusion is what?
Well, my conclusion is that it's ageism is endemic in this country, and I've been looking at this since 1999, and when my grandma was in 95, when my granddad died in hospital. And I noted the attitude was,
he had a good innings.
He's 85. Well, you know, we said then, and subsequently with my grandma, my mum, would you be treating them like this with their medical conditions if they were my age or younger? The answer's no. So when it just came to a head, didn't it, with the COVID crisis, the NHS were told to make space, empty beds to make space for COVID patients. Did they pick on children?
Yeah.
Did they, heck? Did they pick on a 40-year-old with a heart condition? No. They will throw out all the bed blockers, such an offensive term.
Yeah.
All these people who've paid into the NHS all their lives since the early days of the NHS, and they just were treated as collateral damage.
And what I could never understand, David, was these Nightingale hospitals. They never seemed to be fully utilised or used. And, you know, they were sitting there. Why didn't they just say...
They came later, didn't they?
They hadn't got the staff.
The truth is, you know what? I thought those Nightingale hospitals were for hopeless cases. They didn't know what was going to happen with COVID. And they thought if people get this virus which kills you and is easily transmissible.
Keep
will
them all
shunt
together.
them all into this in these hospitals.
Interesting.
Thankfully, thank God that it wasn't.
My son's girlfriend was 23 at the start of this, and she worked in a care home, and a young girl lost 17 patients, residents. You know, death day in, day out for a young girl. So it wasn't only the elderly that were affected by this, but
the staff as well.
Look, let's talk about brighter stuff, hopefully.
Yeah.
And for the rest of the review, we're going to raise a cup to you and we're going to talk about tea and coffee.
Right.
And first of all, David, we're going to start you off with coffee and a coffee test.
Yes, now you are what you eat or you are what you drink, according to this excellent feature in the Times. Now, this has been sparked by Sue Gray, the Whitehall ethics chief who was investigating the parties. Can we talk about them again? And somebody saw her going into a coffee shop and tweeted, "Just seen Sue Gray in the queue for Pret. Black Americano. No sugar, no messing around, ruthless." And then, this has tempted Polly Vernon, the feature writer on the Times, to analyse the different types of coffee and say what it says about our character. I mean, Taylor Swift is a latte drinker. And
a caramel latte.
A caramel latte. And
surprising.
Now, what are you, Isabel?
I'm a cappuccino drinker.
So cappuccino people, they're only really in it for the chocolate, and literally everyone knows it. And then, of course, if you go for a caramel latte, then that's the equivalent of an Alco Pop. It's for people who are also eating the icing straight off the top of the cupcake.
I've never had a cup of coffee in my life.
Oh, you're so strange.
So we can't allow it.
If I was, it would have to be fluffy and sweet.
You'd be a caramel latte, for sure.
Okay.
Someone went in for a coffee. I saw on Twitter yesterday and asked, for whatever their coffee was, and the person replied saying, "And what bean would you like?" And it's got to the stage, and he said, "A coffee bean." That's the world's gone mad.
What kind of milk do you want?
Yeah.
You know,
almond, soya.
Well, I love that
so
quote from when Nadine Dorris. She gave me an interview which sort of. Got a lot of traction in which she said she was going to do something about widening the access to jobs in the BBC, and she said, "I could hear the oat milk latte cups crashing to the floor when I said this."
Do you indulge in coffee, or you?
I love coffee, but I like black coffee with a drop of cold milk in it.
Straight talking,
Normal.
straight to the point,
Ruthless.
no messing about.
Flat white. So a flat white is you fancy yourself as rather more sophisticated than latte people. There you go.
I just like strong coffee with a drop of milk in it. Okay.
So when it comes to tea, you've gone to the Sun. This is page 11 in the Sun.
Yeah.
What are they saying about tea?
Well, it's saying even if you drink just one cup of tea a day, it has health benefits because tea is kills germs.
Now, would that include builder's tea, breakfast tea, or grey tea, or does it have to be like green tea or?
Well, it says black tea, green tea, or there's another one. Anyway,
but not real tea.
Yeah, real builder's tea. Yeah.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Not with milk and sugar.
Yeah, it's the tea, and I know this to be true because I saw a documentary a couple of years ago, and it was saying that the British Empire was built on tea because everybody was drinking it all around the world, and it brought over from China, etc. So when all these people were brought from the fields for the Industrial Revolution into places like Manchester, which was slums, absolutely disgusting, typhoid coming from the wells, cholera, everything. What saved the population, obviously there were a lot of deaths, was tea, because you were drinking tea, not only were you boiling the water, you were also getting the benefits, these antioxidants and antibiotic properties of tea. So tea saved the British,
much like beer used to before they had clean water. People used to drink
drank beer and mead. But it kills bugs.
I heard that tea has more caffeine in it than coffee, which is why I avoid it unless I have a decaf tea.
Don't drink tea in the evening because No, it does
Keeps
have
you buzzing.
caffeine. It does, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But coffee...
You
yeah.
don't need to be buzzing anymore. Thanks for buzzing for us
Calm
today.
down.
Liz, a pleasure always
Yeah,
to have you.
and-
David, really good
yeah.
seeing you as well, my friend.
And congrats on the new job.
Thank you.
We're allowed to say that? Probably not.
Thank you.
OK. Stay with us.
I don't think I'm going to want to
Oh, I
congratulate
know. Well, am I allowed to? You sure?
can, yes.
Well, yes. So David, who is, of course, the political editor of The Sun on Sunday, has just been appointed as...
Editor of the Sunday Express.
There you go. Congratulations.
Tell you what, your circulation will rise immediately by appearing on this programme.
Well, it will be, or I'll be coming here for a job.
Thank you very much indeed. Look, we're heading towards the top of the hour. After that, we're down at Westminster Magistrates Court. This is where this man has been charged with murdering 4 family members. This was in Bermondsey on Monday. We're going to bring the full details on that after the weather.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deacon with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Another chilly one out there this morning, but another dry day. It's been a very dry April so far. Sunny spells for some, but not all. High pressure is controlling our weather, keeping things dry, but around high pressure, the winds go clockwise, and so feeding in some moisture from the North Sea. It's eastern parts of England that are likely to see a lot of grey weather again today. Quite a glum start for much of Yorkshire down to East Anglia today, and that cloud spreading into parts of the Midlands at times. Much of southern England, Wales, good part of Scotland, Northern Ireland, dry and fine, although we will see a few showers drifting in across the Western Isles, perhaps late in the day. With the sunshine, well, it does make a big difference to the feel of the day. Not particularly warm, but after a chilly start, pleasant enough in the sunshine. 16 in Cardiff, 17 in Southampton, Hull, Lincoln down to Norwich, just 11 or 12 with the cloudier conditions here. That's going to feel pretty fresh. During this evening, that cloud may break up a little bit more over parts of eastern England before more cloud then comes in from the North Sea through the early hours. A bit more cloud developing across parts of Scotland as we go through the night as well, and that'll lead into a few more showers perhaps on Friday. Again, for most, it's dry and clear tonight, so again, gardeners take note. Frost is possible, certainly in rural areas over northern England, Wales, Northern Ireland and southern Scotland. Again, on Friday, tomorrow's looking fairly cloudy over eastern England, some sunny spells possible, and more cloud over northern and eastern Scotland. Could provide 1 or 2 scattered showers, but for the vast majority, it's dry. And again, much of the west seeing blue skies, sunny spells, and feeling pretty pleasant in the sunshine, 16, 17, maybe 18 Celsius. Where it stays cloudy, we're only looking at temperatures just a little bit above double figures. High pressure hanging around then for the next few days, keeping things dry. Some wet weather in the northwest later on Saturday, but for many, the first day of the bank holiday weekend will stay dry and fine.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A man has been charged with the stabbing of 4 family members in southeast London.
And we should point out it's not that man.
Sir Keir Starmer.
Not that man.
No, Sir Keir Starmer is back under renewed pressure this morning after Durham Constabulary have said they will re-look at his potential lockdown rule breaking.
Well, look, it's Thursday, the 28th of April. Thank you very much indeed for your company here on Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel, Webster. The story we have leading the news today is a man will appear at Westminster Magistrates today, charged with the stabbings of 4 family members, and this was in southeast London.
Yeah, our Home Affairs editor, Mark White, is at the court for us. We'll be speaking to him very shortly.
Durham police have opened the door to a renewed probe into claims that Sir Keir Starmer broke lockdown rules in April last year. The Culture Secretary has called for the Labour leader to be subjected to the same standards as the Prime Minister.
York councillors from all parties have voted unanimously to remove Prince Andrew's freedom of the city. The vote was accompanied by calls for the Queen to strip the Prince of his Duke of York title.
And the Foreign Secretary has warned that the war in Ukraine could last up to 10 years. In a major foreign policy address, Liz Truss called President Putin a desperate rogue operator and warned China they better play by the rules.
And we are the People's Channel, so we want to hear from you. You can join in any of our discussions by tweeting at GB News, or you can email us gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Just one thing to say before we move on. This is the last chance today for people to vote for us at those Trick Awards, and it would just be great. It'd be great to upset the apple cart to get there on the shortlist for that to be at the award ceremony, because we never get many days out, and we'd like to do that. But look,
we've had loads of people email saying they've been doing it, so thank you very much. And if you haven't yet, please just take 90 seconds of your day. We'd be very grateful.
Appreciate that. Really, really would. It means so much to so many people here. So there it is, trick.org.uk. Go on, you know you can do it. Thank you very much indeed.
28-year-old Joshua Jack is to appear in court this morning after he's been charged with the murders of a family in Bermondsey in southeast London.
Let's go to our Home and Security editor, Mark White. He's there at Westminster Magistrates. Mark, tell us more.
Well, good morning. Yes, this was a horrific event that unfolded in the early hours of Monday morning. It was 20 to 2 in the morning when police were called by neighbours to this property in Bermondsey after hearing screams. Now, when police arrived, they got no response and had to force their way into that address. And inside, they found the 4 victims, 64-year-old Dollet Hill, her partner, who was called Denton Burke. He was 58. Miss Hill's daughter, Tanisha, who was 45, and her daughter, Samantha Drummonds, who was 27, all suffering from stab injuries. Paramedics tried their best to save all 4 victims, but they were pronounced dead at the scene. Also inside the property was 28-year-old Joshua Jack. He was tasered by officers, taken to hospital initially, but then held in a local police station in South London for the last couple of days. He has now been charged this morning with 4 counts of murder. He is due to appear here for his first court appearance at Westminster Magistrates Court within the next hour or two.
This side to me.
OK, Mark, thank you very much. Keep us posted. I know you will just as soon as he appears, and we'll come back to you. Thank you very much.
Another story we've been reporting on throughout the programme this morning is from York, where councillors there have removed Prince Andrew's Freedom of the City honour.
Yeah, this comes in the wake of the sexual assault case that was brought against the Duke of York by Virginia Giffey, which has now been settled out of court.
So many people are now wondering if Prince Andrew's royal title will be the next to go.
So for more on this and for the other big stories of the day, the former minister and royal author Norman Baker joins us in the studio. Very good morning to you. What's your take on what happened in York last night? It was a unanimous vote.
Well, it was, yes. Well, two abstentions, I think, but nobody voted against the proposal that he should have his association with York removed. He's lost the freedom of the city, and I think they want him to lose his dukedom as well. But, you know, York wasn't asked in the first place whether they wanted Prince Andrew. He was just foisted upon them. I come from Sussex. I'm living in Sussex, and I woke up one day to find we had Prince Harry. No one asked anyone in Sussex if we wanted Prince Harry. This is a rather medieval way of dealing with these matters, to just appoint people to parts of the country. But, you know, of course, the dukedom can only be taken away by the Queen. We heard you mentioned about the court case. It's not simply that. I mean, he's also been criticised quite heavily, including in my book, for his financial arrangements, his association with dictators, with torturers, with a convicted gun runner who gave his daughter an £18,000 bracelet. I mean, Prince Andrew is just bad news all round. So why would you want to be associated with him? I hope very much he will have a Duke of York title taken away.
But he's unlikely to, I suspect, because it would involve an Act of Parliament, and that would, of course, upset Her Majesty the Queen. But I wonder if he's not going to have his royal title taken away, might he have some of his other honorary ones? For example, I believe, has he got a link with Inverness, and there's another place in Northern Ireland?
Do you know Killyleagh?
Killyleagh.
But I think actually what it shows is, Norman's just highlighted something there. You can have all the titles you want, but the real power has to lie with money. You can have the titles, but without the money, he's not relevant, is he?
Well, you can have the titles, you haven't got the public support. And actually, that's more important these days in a democracy, that if people in York don't want him, actually that says more than any title. The fact he's got a title can't override that. The public opinion in York, I think, is very, very clear. And, you know, he's damaged goods, Prince Andrew.
Is he permanently damaged
goods? Yes,
goods?
he is. I think he is. I mean, a whole lot of stuff about his finances is yet to come out, in my view. So there's a whole lot more there. He's done immense damage to the royal family. He's done immense damage to the country. And he's doing some damage to York, it seems.
Talking about men doing damage to the reputations of institutions, a Conservative MP has been accused of watching pornography in the House of Commons. This is a new low.
Well, my first reaction when I heard that was to say, what are people doing looking at phones in the chamber anyway? Because
they all do.
I know they do. But I don't want to sound like somebody from the distant past, but not very long ago when I was an MP, we weren't allowed to have phones.
Yes.
They were banned. What we had were pagers which vibrated and told you to go and see the Whip's office or whatever the message was on your pager, and you couldn't respond to it, you just saw a message.
Right.
That was the right way of dealing with it, to be able
But
to
the world's
contact
moved on, hasn't it? I mean, we're in the world of 24-hour news. If everybody at home is watching the likes of the rolling news channels like us, and we've got, for example, a terror attack or whatever it might be, and there they are, the people who are the decision makers, completely in the dark. It's just the way of the world. But I don't think you have to ban phones in the Commons to address the issue of ministers or whoever it might be. I'm not suggesting it is a minister, but people watching porn in the Commons.
No, well, we had terror attacks, sadly, when I was an MP. We found out about them quite quickly. I mean, the grapevine tells you very quickly what's happening. You don't need a mobile phone to do that. There's two issues. There's the issue about what he's allegedly watching. And we don't know what he was watching. He may have been scrolling through, and we just don't know. But the issue is, if he's in the chamber to do some work for his constituents, what's he doing looking at mobile phones anyway? So I would ban mobile phones in the chamber. Actually, I don't think they should be in classrooms either.
I agree with that.
I just don't think we should have them.
Or some form, I mean, you referred to a pager there, some sort of government-issued device be it a basic mobile phone, whatever it is.
It's just not going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to happen. And, you know, it shows the power and the influence of a lot of the political editors as well. I suspect that, you know, a lot of the front bench during PMQs are actually looking what the likes of the big names are saying on social media.
Well, they probably are, but, you know, actually they're looking at how the reporting is going instead of living what's happening at the moment. You know, I know one or two people who spend their time on holiday doing nothing but taking photographs. You know, actually, are you enjoying yourself, or are you actually just taking photographs to show someone afterwards? You know, live the moment.
Do you not miss when you come home? Do you not say to yourself, I wish I had have taken more photographs?
No, I don't actually. I don't.
Do you have
really.
photographs up in your house? Are you
very few.
Yeah.
Very few. I just like to enjoy myself.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah,
you go to concerts and all you can see is the screens of people. And
weddings.
Yeah, and then everyone's just wanting to do a humble brag.
I haven't even got a photograph with you two here in the studio. I mean, that's missing from my collection.
Yes, well, we'll sort that out.
Do you have social media, do you?
Not really. I do. I've got a Facebook page, that's it.
Get a picture of you, me and us on that. That's
that would rocket my ratings, would it?
That'd be great. That'd be great. You don't have to worry again. Now, we talked about Partygate. The viewers hate it, but actually, viewers and listeners may actually welcome a bit of evening up here with Beergate.
Yeah, the beer and Pizzagate. And Sir Keir Starmer's getting it in the neck now, and a lot of people are saying about time too. What's your view on this?
Well, I mean, as an objective point, if he has been engaging in activity which looks like it may be illegal, then of course that should be investigated by the police. The law should apply to everybody, no matter who they are. Nobody's above the law. So it depends what the evidence is as to whether it should be investigated. I read the Mail front page and the inside story. I mean, I think they're overplaying it somewhat at the moment. I mean, a Tory MP's complained, entitled to do that. There appears to be some evidence that something's happened. And the response from I think it's the Assistant Chief Constable in the paper says, I will ask the investigation team what they're doing. That's very different from saying they're investigating.
Right. Yes, of course.
Considering review,
I mean, you're absolutely right there. This whole situation in Ukraine, Norman, and Liz Truss was you know, fair play to her. She was bit of sabre rattling last night. Putin thinks he can get away with anything. He makes all these veiled threats, right? If you mess with us, I've got the nuclear option and all that sort of thing. Are we handling this right, or is the reality, does he know that everyone from Canada, the United States, Great Britain, Australia have got nuclear options raining down on him, all pointed in his direction?
Well, I mean, look, we cannot give in to nuclear blackmail. And whenever someone says, if you do something, I've got a nuclear weapon, well, you know, that's a very dangerous road to go down, to cave into that. I mean, we're going to cave into that bloke in North Korea.
Yeah. But if his assertions go unchallenged, which they seem to, then people accept, oh, he's the one that's prepared to use it.
Well, then it emboldens King Jong-un and the like as well, doesn't it?
Yes, perhaps. You may or may not have heard or read the Trump interview this week, where he's basically saying Putin was scared stiff of him. He was making this.
Well, I don't believe a thing Trump says, to be perfectly honest with you. Trump interprets everything to favour himself. But coming back to, I think, what Robin says, some more serious matters about Ukraine. Look, I mean, I wrote for the Mail on Sunday 2-3 weeks ago and said, you've got to face this guy down, Putin. I mean, he only understands strength. That's what bullies do. They understand strength. And no attempt to negotiate with him as a reasonable person won't work, because he's not reasonable. He's a psychopath.
And that ridiculous table that he deliberately humiliates anyone, you know, the UN General
Antonio
Secretary.
Guterres.
Who turned up, whatever. I think if that had been me, I would have just pulled up a chair down this end, and if he wasn't happy with it, I'd have gone out.
Send you.
Do you know? But you don't think it's humiliating? I mean, the first thing I'd do is
exactly why he's
President Putin, very good to see you. I would deliberately mispronounce his name just to annoy him.
It's a very large table, and it's a very long way away.
Ridiculous.
And you look at the end of the table and think, is that Vladimir Putin or is that Prince Andrew? I can't quite work out with the other end of the table. Yeah, I mean, look, the guy is not rational, and the only thing he'll understand is force. And if we don't stop him here, he will be into Moldova. His journal's talking about that now. He will be into Georgia. He will do the non-NATO countries first. If we don't stop him there, then the Baltic states will follow. I mean, he is out of control.
He is out of control. And do you know, Liz Truss saying that this could last a decade? What a depressing thought, if that is the case.
Yeah, it's just a depressing thought. The general view from the military is that we're now in for a long haul. A whole lot of damage will be done, and a whole lot of people will lose their lives and be injured, of course, in Ukraine and indeed in Russia. I feel sorry in a way for the Russian soldiers. They will be conscripted, sent across the border, told they're liberating Ukraine and being rained down on with weapons and missiles because they were misinformed.
Well,
but
many of them accused of rape and the like.
Indeed, I mean, some of them are doing that.
Yeah.
They're out of control too because they're not properly maintained in a military sense as forces should be. But you know, it's a human disaster, and it comes down to one man. It comes down to one man. There's vanity.
But we're only in it for the long haul if he doesn't press that button. So it's sort of mixed messages. One minute we all fear that we're going to be wiped off the face of the earth, and the next minute we're told by Liz Truss, well, it's going to be 10 years. It goes to 10 years if he plays by the rules of war, I suppose.
I don't think he'll use nuclear weapons because he's facing countries, the UK, the US, who've got nuclear weapons. I think that's a bluff, to be honest with you.
Right. Now, I want to talk to you. Your time, you worked in the Home Office, did you? Or you were
I was there for over a year with number 2 to Theresa May. Yes.
Theresa May, yeah. Now, all this business, the passport office there, and these tailbacks, what are they, Isabel, 500,000?
Yeah, 500,000 people having to wait up to 10 weeks and Boris Johnson threatening to privatise the passport office. What's going on here? What would you do about it?
Well, the threat to privatise doesn't solve the problem. I mean, the assumption there, which Boris is making, is that would be more efficient. There's no evidence it would be more efficient. And there's no evidence, certainly in the short term, the chaos that would be caused by a change in arrangements would make the matters worse. You know, what's happened is that there's probably been, I don't know, but the passport office is probably understaffed as much as the public sector is. People haven't been renewing their passports because of COVID for a couple of years, because no one was going abroad. Now we're suddenly able to go abroad again, and all these holidays built up in people's minds who want to undertake. They're saying, oh, let's go to Canada, let's go here, there, and everywhere. And they're all pulling in for passports at the same time. So there's a sudden deluge of applications, and they can't do it.
It's a perfect storm. It's pretty awful. Can we get out of it?
It will sort itself out in due course. I mean, there's just a bulge. Yeah. Probably in a couple of months' time it'll be better, I think.
Okay. Norman, really appreciate your take on things.
You're going to be a regular for us, aren't you, on a Thursday morning? We're delighted to have you coming in, talking about the big issues of the day. Good stuff. Thank you, Norman.
The world according to Norman. Baking up. We'll have to get something involved in baking. What is baking doing?
I just think
the
of
great Norman
naughty Norman.
I think I prefer Storm and Norman rather.
Storm and Norman, yeah.
There you go.
Nice talking to you, Norman. Thank you
look, stay with us after the break. Ellie Phillips is in the house. She's going to be talking to us about all things showbiz, including why Katie Price could be facing jail. Back in a moment.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. So it is time to go through the showbiz news. Ellie Phillips joins us in the studio. So much today to talk about. Shall we start with Katie Price? Really sad seeing her, what she's going through. Back in court, this time Crawley magistrates, and she could be going to jail this time.
Yeah, so she's already facing jail because she has allegedly breached a restraining order that's held against her by her ex-husband Kieran Hayler's now fiancée Michelle Pentecost. The issue is she was in court yesterday. She denied those charges. That will go to Crown Court on the 25th of May. But whilst in court, in the courthouse, she filmed photographers outside the courthouse and published that to social media. That's illegal in England and Wales.
Even though it was outside and even though it was...
Yes, because she was inside the courthouse. And it's just illegal to do in this country. And that can be a fine of up to £1,000 and jail time, which she's already facing. So she's just adding to all her woes at the moment.
I'd give her the benefit of the doubt on that one. This is at the judge's discretion.
Yeah, as well as that, though, this isn't to do with court time, but this has also emerged, is that Kieran Hayler, who's her ex-husband, he's also contacted police because he fears for the safety of his children. So he has 2 children with Katie, Jet and Bunny. Jet, their son, is 8 years old, and Katie filmed a video of Jet without a seatbelt in a moving car and uploaded that to TikTok. Kieran said, that's putting my children, you know, not in a safe position, and so he's reported that to police as well. So it is really mounting up. And yesterday, when she was with the magistrates' court, the person in charge basically said, you are at real risk here of going to jail, you know, and your children need the adults to be adults.
2 words to say in all of this, and that is Caroline Flack. And I just think the way that the media are chasing this, and it's clear that she's going through some sort of meltdown, and there are children involved. And I really hope the papers give her some slack.
Ellie, do you know Katie?
I have met her before. I've interviewed her a couple of times. Yeah.
She's, you know, whatever people may say, and she has her faults. There's absolutely no doubt. She, as an interviewer, she will answer anything. She doesn't dodge anything. No. She will answer it straight. And as a mum, certainly you can't.
She loves her kids.
Yeah,
she's incredible when it comes to, especially Harvey. You know, she is just incredible when it comes to him. And I think it's interesting what you said there about her mental health, because her defence yesterday was that she broke this restraining order. She sent a very abusive message to Kieran about his fiancée, which she's not allowed to do. And he said it's to do with her mental health, that she can't handle things properly, and that she felt triggered by something that she saw, and that kind of set her off. And I think there definitely is some kind of mental health aspect to this, and it is troubling to see what she's going through.
And she goes through it time after time after time. There's no end to it. Katie, we wish you well.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, let's not talk about it anymore.
We stay with health, and this is agoraphobia, which is a fear of going outside. Suffered in this case by who?
Kim Basinger. So this is really unexpected. She appeared yesterday on Red Table Talk, which is Jada Pinkett Smith's Facebook kind of programme. And she appeared on that, and she revealed that she suffers with this disorder, and it actually stemmed from when she was a child. She saw her mum growing up with really bad anxiety and felt the need to be at home to kind of protect her mum. So she said that in school she would make up all these excuses to be sent home to be with her mum, and had this kind of compulsion and this need to be at home. And that's developed into this agoraphobia as an adult. She said that at one point she didn't drive for 7 months, that she had to relearn to drive, and for years she wouldn't leave the house and wouldn't even invite people over to see her. She sought treatment. She said she had 6 months of treatment to kind of overcome this, and that she's dealing much better with it.
I do think if you are a celebrity and you have that tendency, I can see how that... Because, I mean, I go anywhere with you, and you get stopped every two... No, but it's a serious point.
Celebrity.
But I would hate that. I would hate to be recognised all the time everywhere I go. And I think if you are naturally, you know, a little bit agoraphobic, that could just be so difficult. She can't go about her life like a normal person.
Absolutely. And I think it does come to show that not all illnesses, not all disabilities can be seen. You might see her out and about and think, oh, she's fine, she's happy, she's having a great time, but actually she's really struggling inside. And that doesn't just happen to normal people, it can happen to celebrities too.
Well, we hope she gets well too with that. I want to finish, we've got about 90 seconds left, and this is sexiest celebrity above 50, and I'm really glad this is being brought to attention, because, not because I'm in
Ruthie should be in there.
No, but what I'm trying to say is there are so many beautiful people, men and women, and 50's just a number.
Yeah.
So who's in there?
OK, so top of the list, you've got Kylie Minogue, second is Liz Hurley, and third is Jennifer Aniston. This is all done by a dating service called Our Time, which is for over 50s. The interesting thing they found in this survey was that a third of those polled said the favourite celebrities had aged gracefully, look better now than they did when they were younger. And a quarter of those surveys revealed that they feel sexier in their 50s than they did in their prime. And the over 50 surveyed are more romantic today and have sex more often than when they were in their 30s.
Well, I suppose most of that's true, but, but the interesting thing is that the people there's some people. Elizabeth Hurley is the most beautiful, stunning individual. George Clooney.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen me and George Clooney in the same room?
No,
Seriously?
No.
The amount of times I'm mistaken for him.
Yeah.
It gets embarrassing. But I think these people are role models, Ellie, as well, for a lot of people, because a lot of people have insecurity about getting older.
But do they not just pile a bit of pressure on us all? You know, we've got to look like that hot when we're 50. I never even looked that hot when I was 21.
I mean, you look at JLo and you're like, wow, how is she human?
But it's not possible.
But I think the point is that you don't lose sexiness as you get older. You can still be sexy. You're only as old as you feel. And I think actually growing old is a privilege. You know, we're lucky that we get to do that. And like they said, those who do it gracefully are the ones that they find most attractive.
Oh, Ellie, you talk a lot of sense.
Might be a lesson.
It's a blessing to grow
that
old.
in mind. All gracefully and naturally.
When I modernise my hair.
Naturally.
Yeah, I'll add that to this. What are you saying?
Just, you know, keep it all that
On
way.
that note, we're going to go. It's bank holiday.
It's a special treat. Yes, we're going to be back bank holiday.
Yeah,
Monday.
we are. We'll be working. Don't you worry about that.
We're not on longer.
Probably will be.
Wait a minute. Does any of our producers know we're on
The
longer?
answer is yes, we will be.
Nope.
Anyway, I'll tell you who's going to be on for shorter if we carry on talking much longer. That's Tom Harwood. He's up next with the briefing. We've got to go. See you Monday.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Another chilly one out there this morning, but another dry day. It's been a very dry April so far. Sunny spells for some, but not all. High pressure is controlling our weather, keeping things dry, but around high pressure, the winds go clockwise, and so feeding in some moisture from the North Sea. It's eastern parts of England that are likely to see a lot of grey weather again today. Quite a glum start for much of Yorkshire down to East Anglia today, and that cloud spreading into parts of the Midlands at times. Much of southern England, Wales, good part of Scotland, Northern Ireland, dry and